Hey everybody, what's going on? Brother John here with another and spontaneous edition of God Talk. We were just in a previous hangout off on a video call, and a discussion came up about if God can lie. So we're going to take it from there, and I don't know, we have Roy in the room was very passionate that God cannot lie. He says that God can logically not lie. He's fair and just. So we're trying to get all these definitions. So where were we, guys?
I just came in.
We were trying to find out how he comes to the definitions, like you said, and then how Roy comes to these. I don't want to call them presuppositions, but they're. Would you state them out, Roy? Your three things that you said God has to hold to be God.
Yeah. So outside of the Bible, just as a human being, just contemplating my own navel lint. Okay, maybe not so much that, but just contemplating, is there God or is there not God? So if I didn't know, just by my own reason and logic, as well as every other human beings on the planet, I believe that you have to conclude that if there is God, then his first attribute would be he does not lie. The reason I say that is it's logical and it's very reasonable for me, because if he did lie, then he wouldn't be God by definition. And what do I mean by that? Well, we as human beings lie. We do lie. We can lie. So we do. So I would never know for sure 100% if I was talking to somebody that I just met or somebody that I've known for quite a long time, whether or not they just lied to me or not. And sometimes I'd be able to fact check it, but most of the time I wouldn't be. So now if God had this attribute of being able to lie to me, and he told me something, Roy, do this, don't do that. It's like, really? I have to fact check everything to find out if I even should be doing it, because I don't know when he's lying to me or not. Go ahead.
Yeah, can I clarify something here?
Yeah, go ahead, Sider.
Yeah, just a question, Roy. Are you saying that God does not have the capability to lie, or has the capability to lie and chooses not to?
That was a question that Ray brought to me, or something he put on the table. Maybe I can ask Ray to help you on that a little bit better, and then if you still want to ask me, I'll either agree or disagree with Ray.
It was the same question, I think. Just how, yeah. I mean, the ability not to lie and just not lying are two different things. Like if God can't lie, or just chooses not to, they're quite different, right?
Yeah.
And I have a clarification question too after you get that one.
Yeah, so I will go with the premise God doesn't lie. Okay, so if I'm contemplating God outside of the Bible, I don't know the Bible, I don't know anything, and I'm just thinking to myself, does God exist or not? Well, if he does exist, then he does not lie. And I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. I'm looking for some common ground and a common attribute of God outside of the Bible, outside of any other literature. Just logically speaking, reasonably speaking, God then would not lie.
This kind of becomes the problem.
But you're not answering my question.
I have a clarification. I help him answer it.
My question was to do with regardless of whether he does or does not lie, does he have the capability to lie? Is God capable of lying? It's a yes or no question, I think.
Right. That's the difference between can God lie and chooses not to, or is he incapable of lying?
Yeah, which is exactly the question I asked.
Right, and that part of my clarification might help as well, because I want him to define lying before we move too much further into it, because I'm not sure how, Roy, how you're coming to that assertion that for God to exist, he cannot lie. Like I'm not following how logically that follows.
All right, so if God has
the
attribute of not lying to me, if I can start with
and where does that come from?
Define lying first, and then what?
Telling me something that is not true. So whenever God gives me a command, I know right away I'm going to do it or not do it. If he commands me to do it, I will. If he commands me not to, I won't. Because now there's no thinking on my part whatsoever. There's no fact-checking on my part. There's no reasoning with it to see if it's logical or reasonable or not. Even if it's beyond my own capability to think it through, why I should be doing it, it doesn't matter. Because if he doesn't lie, I am going to follow him 100%. Because in the long run, it will work out for my good. Because
So
he does not lie.
Can I
does
ask?
not lie.
Can I ask
He
a
won't
really
lie.
simple question? What is the God that you're referring to?
Yeah, because
God.
Roy said wait, hold on. Let me just clarify because we're live now for the audience. In the previous hangout, you said that you don't need the Bible to know that God doesn't lie. So now,
And that's weird.
we need yes, because now you're saying that you can know this, but how do you know this that God is not lying to you if He tells you to do something if you have no reference point?
Okay, so for those who just entered the room who don't understand, let me start over. So I don't know anything about anything. I don't know the Bible exists. I don't know God exists. I don't know anything. But I'm contemplating my navel lint one day, and I go, what if God exists? So my next thought is, if he does exist, yes, he does not lie. That would be his first attribute. That would be the first attribute of God. Because
That is a
if
leap
God,
of logic to begin with.
because if God does lie, then he's not God.
It's two
It's really
leaps.
that simple. Because I would never know to follow his command to do or not to do, and I would have to fact check everything. I would have to reason everything, make everything logical. I'd have to check with my peers to see if they agree or not. That is too much for God to be God.
Yeah, but
So he would just
Roy,
be a man.
if you're going to use reason and logic as a variable in your thought process, knowing that from nothing to there might be a God to that God can't lie to you are like several leaps of logic that need justification in a way that you're just dismissing. You're just like, oh, that just happens to be so. And that's not so.
Yeah.
Okay, so if God exists,
Okay, let's
he lie?
start with the basics.
That's a
If
first.
there is anything other than natural,
Thank you.
right? So let's start with if there is anything that is supernatural that exists. Let's start with that. That is a bottom-up approach.
Yeah, that was my first complaint, was that first leap that you're making.
Okay, so maybe I didn't make myself clear. So I'm contemplating. I don't know the Bible. I don't even know the Bible exists. I don't know any Holy Scriptures. I'm just thinking out loud to myself while I'm contemplating my navel lint, and I say to myself, does God exist?
Where does that come from? Where does that come from?
This is my humanness thinking logically and reasonably, because I'm thinking, man, there's got to be something bigger, greater than myself. Is there something out there that I don't know about?
No, you've already come to a conclusion. That
several
does
leaps
not follow from does God exist. From does God exist, the answer is yes, he does, or no, he doesn't. If
Correct.
God exists, then the next question is, what kind of God is this?
That's exactly right. And so my first...
Okay, so walk us through all of the steps that lead you towards the conclusion that you're obviously saying.
Right. So if God exists, and I'm not even starting with he does, I'm just saying if he does, his first attribute is he does not lie to me. It has to be.
Why? Where did you come
Because
up
if
with
he
that?
lies to me, then he's not God.
Why?
How do you,
And that's why pixies exist, because they don't lie to me.
yeah.
Why? How does that logically follow?
Because if he lied to me, I would never know if he's lying to me.
So you're presupposing that if the God that you think exists, it is a God that doesn't lie. That is totally unsupportable. I would love for you to justify why, of the many gods that exist, the God that you believe exists would not lie to you. Justify
Okay, you
it.
threw in an
starting there.
orange. Okay, hold on. Christopher, you threw in an orange. I'm talking about apples.
No.
I don't think he did.
Yes.
I don't
I'm
think he
talking
did.
about, I don't know other gods exist. I only know that if God exists, he cannot lie to me, he won't lie to me, he doesn't lie to me, he will never lie to me.
That is the
That's
exact
the
point at
definition.
which
By definition, any normal, sound thinking human being will come to that conclusion. They have to.
Why is that a prerequisite that you're saying that we?
Because the opposite.
I think I just exposed the flaw of your argument, and I'm going to
which
enjoy
one? That's
watching you try to flesh that out amongst the panel of awesome experts we have.
Can I ask a further question?
Way too high of a compliment.
Okay, so
Can I ask a further question?
I just want to find out if anybody here agrees that if God does lie to you, then by definition he would not be God.
Which God?
Also, I mean,
That doesn't follow. That's what everybody's saying.
I don't
Which
see.
God?
I don't see.
Which God? Because hold on. Hold on.
And would you
Which-
listen to him when he's lying to you?
It wouldn't matter. That's what I'm saying. That doesn't follow.
I remember reading something about a god of this world that does some lying.
Or the ghost that never lies.
John, that was hilarious.
Okay.
You, my friend, are a comedian.
Thank you. Just trying to make a point.
Yeah. And that is what we're asking is how that.
But wait a second, you guys understand, and John, you understand. I'm not even that far yet, right? I'm just supposing that God exists. If he does exist, by definition, he does not lie.
But no, you're going beyond. Hold on a second, guys. Hold on a second. Ray, you are going beyond the point that I made that let's imagine that there is a God. How does that support the notion that it is your God that you have very specific definitions for? How do you support that justification from a God could exist to the God that I think does exist? That is a leap of logic that you need shit tons of evidence and support for to justify. So
Not at
go
all.
ahead and
Not
take
at all.
care of it.
Roy, you still haven't
Not at
answered.
all. Let me explain this again.
Let
Right.
him respond real quick, and then Side or ask him whatever.
yeah, I want to say something as well.
Let
All
him
right,
respond.
Side,
Everybody
all right.
on him. At least let him respond.
Yeah, go ahead.
Roy respond, and then Cider and Sokka.
Yeah, here's all I'm saying, guys. I'm saying I don't know any God exists, much less 10 million gods exist. I don't know that. I'm just contemplating my navel lint, and in the process, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if God exists, then by definition, he's not going to lie to me.
That is
Period.
not by
That's all
definition.
That's
No.
not by definition. That's the assumption.
You
That's
have
as
violated.
far-
You have
Wait,
violated a
finish.
definition of
That's as
supernatural.
far as I've gotten. I don't
No.
know God's name.
No.
I don't
Very
know,
correct.
what he looks like or doesn't look like. I don't know anything
If
more.
you
All I
think
know
that is by
that's
definition, then your
logically
definition is
the case.
idiosyncratic. Ray,
Hold on, guys.
do you understand what idiosyncratic definitions are? Because a definition is how words are used within context. You are using the word God in an idiosyncratic way. Nobody who believes that God exists automatically thinks that that God can't lie. And when you say that
Well, you
by
just made a
definition,
false
I'm not done
statement
talking,
because I
Ray.
do.
I'm
You
not
just
done
said
talking,
nobody
Ray.
does.
I'd
That's
appreciate
my
if you
point.
let me finish my point, Ray. It would be awesome if you let me finish my point, Ray.
I don't know who Ray is.
So,
but,
That's Roy. That's Roy.
Roy.
But
My
quickly,
apologies.
wait, hold on.
My
I would just
sincere
remind
apologies.
everybody in this room that you are in my hangout, and I try to moderate my hangouts pretty strict. So, Chris, I love you, Chris, but you talked out of turn. But I'll let you finish your point. But then we have to go to Cider.
So my apologies, Roy. I was calling you Ray. I misread.
No worries. And can I call you Chris, or is it
It's totally cool. And by the way, the arguments that I have are against your position, not against you. I'm sure that you
Right.
are an
And
awesome
there's
person.
right?
And we're just having a discussion of ideas.
Yeah, Roy's a great guy.
So Roy, I think that the point that I'm making is there is a leap of logic in what you're saying, right? Because you're saying if there is a God, he couldn't lie to me. There are so many steps between a God existing and a God that can't lie that you are just assuming to be true that you can't justify, and that is the point that people will be arguing with you about.
Exactly.
And that's all. That's the only point that I wanted to make. By the way, totally did not mean to disrespect you, Roy. Totally did not mean to disrespect the host of the show.
The lion.
You're lying, Chris. No,
I'm just an atheist liar. What the fuck do I know?
Reprobate.
Yeah, and just so that we're on the same page, Chris, no disrespect. I get it. I get it. We're passionate. We're very boisterous. I get it. Most of the folks who do know me here get that about me. So yeah, we're all good.
All right, hold on, Roy. Cider and Sokka want to get some words in, and then I guess if they're addressing you, which I'm gathering they are, then you can respond, okay? Or anyone else.
Can I just actually, can you let Sokka go first? Because I've already asked Roy a question, which I still would like to rephrase and ask again, but Sokka hasn't asked the question at all. So
no problem. Go ahead, Sokka.
Hi.
Oi, oi.
Roy, how do you know that your God is good?
Sokka, I haven't got that far yet. I just contemplated.
I'm just saying. Have you ever heard of Stephen Law's The Evil God Challenge?
No.
Okay, it's this the philosophical question where because people ask the question. How can an all-powerful, all-good God allow so much suffering on the world? Well, how do we know that's even the scenario? How do we know that a all-powerful, all-evil God allows so much good in the world?
Yeah, I haven't even got that far yet. So what I'm doing is taking a position. I don't know if you were here early.
I know, but what I'm saying is that you're already jumping to this conclusion that a God,
I'm making these conclusions without any
the creator God must not lie to you. But what I'm saying is that starting at that point of stage is you're already taking a lot of leaps there. Is that how have you established first off that God is even good, that God can't lie to you? Why aren't you assuming that why isn't an evil God just as much validity in your argument as well?
Yeah, because by the simple definition of God, there's attributes that are automatically.
But you don't know the attributes yet.
Of course I do. Of course I do, because he gave me logic and reason to figure that out.
You've made huge jumps.
Yeah, but there's huge jumps there. How do you know that the evil God didn't give you logic and reason too?
No, I think that's unfair. The way that Roy is talking right now makes it clear that his definition of God is different than my or your definition of God.
Yeah. See, I think that one of the things is that when you start asking for characteristics of God, the characteristics of God that you're giving, like the all good and stuff, is something that you're coming from already from an approach that the Bible sets out those characteristics. There are many cultures out there that have concepts of gods that are not good. So to take that leap right from the start, like, okay, well, is there a God? And then immediately to assume, okay, there might be a God, and he's obviously good if there is a God. That right there is a leap that I want to know how you can account for. Because
all right, so let me.
Sorry, just
right, and that's what we were asking you earlier, Roy. How do you arrive at your definition of God?
Yeah, you guys are presupposing all this other stuff, Sokka. I'm not presupposing that anybody even thinks anything like me or not like me. Let me put this to you again. So maybe I'm 10 or 12. And I don't know anything about any scriptures anywhere, anybody's scriptures. I don't even know about anybody's God. But one day I'm just contemplating, my navel lint, and a thought comes to me and says, well, what if there is a God? What would be an attribute of this God? So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I have an imagination, right, guys? We all have an imagination. So with my logical, reasonable thinking, I'm going like, okay, if there is a God, then he would never lie to me. That's my first attribute of God, and that's where all you guys just came unglued. It's like...
Yeah, but how would you know? Again, how would you know that?
Logic.
There's nothing logical about that. Nothing logically follows.
Okay, so here's how my logic works.
Hold on. If you're
let him talk. Because we are addressing his logic of God. He needs to... he doesn't need to do anything. it is our responsibility to understand what he means by the logic of the God that he means. If we're going to argue against anything, we need to understand him. So I think it's only appropriate for Roy to explain what he means by God.
Fair enough.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm not disputing your logical thinking of, if there's a God, then here are his attributes. We haven't even got that far yet. We're just at step one. I'm just contemplating. So as soon as I go, oh, I just came up with something so logical, it didn't even hurt my brain. If God exists, he won't lie to me. And if he did lie to me, then he's not God. Hey, I'm going to go tell a friend now. So I haven't even got there yet. So now that's what this room is about. Now I'm going to tell a friend. So do you agree with that? Yes or no? That's where we're at, I guess.
Roy, are you equivocating right there, and maybe you're saying I'm contemplating a being stronger than me, and then you go down the trail of the strongest being that can be or most powerful, and then you're calling that God. Or you're just giving it a label, and then you're going from there? Or are you just leaving all that out, kind of assuming it that we know it?
Well, okay, so I'm not sure I follow your question, but here's what I'm thinking.
I'm saying, why would you contemplate God out of nowhere?
Oh, because I have to sit. Okay, I sat there and looked at humanity, and I go, you know, at 10 or 12, people have lied. I don't know anybody who hasn't lied. I don't know anybody who's perfect. I look at the world around me, and I go, man, is there something out there, you know, a higher power, a much higher power, a somewhat higher power, somebody that's not human, that, put all this into play or created all of this? That's what I'm contemplating. And then I think, oh, I've heard the name or the word God out there a few times, but I have no knowledge of anybody's attribute of God. It's just a blank slate in my mind. It's just a higher power, whatever the heck that means. So I'm contemplating what would be the attributes of said higher power, aka God. And the first one I come up with, he wouldn't lie to me. So that's all I have so far. I don't have anything more. And now I go and run to my friends and share this, you know, awakening, for lack of choice of words, with them. And they go, oh no, the God that you know, so and so serves or whatever, I don't serve him, but he lies. And I go, oh well, that can't be God, because if God lies, it can't be God by definition, by logical, reasonable thinking. A God who lies is not God. Can't be.
What in both of these incidents, you and the person you're talking to, all right, at the very base of it, isn't it that you guys are creating God in your own image and what you would, you know, like God to be? Or just from observation of the world, say your friend, you know, he sees all this crap going on, people just lied, and, you know, if anybody's controlling this world, they're a lying God. You know, that's what they're perceiving. You know what I'm saying? So the image that you're having of God is in your image, or what you like it to be, not necessarily what it is.
It's not my image. It's the logical conclusion that if there is a God, he doesn't lie to me. Because if he did lie to me, he wouldn't be God. I mean, it's viciously easy. It's so easy that a caveman can understand it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can you phrase it in some type of logical framework that I can understand then?
Well, let's use your navel lint. Okay, no, let's not do that. Let's use mine, because I'm assuming you have it, and I know I have navel lint. So let's assume that.
All of a sudden, I love Roy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. No, so I'm looking at my navel lint, and I'm going like, wow. AKA God. Okay, is my navel lint going to lie to me? Then it can't be God. But if my navel lint doesn't lie to me, then it's God. So if I give it now a form or an attribute beyond that which is like invisible, you know, it's like, oh, that tree is God, or hey, that rock is God, or hey, whatever I deem it to be God, it's now that thing I just attributed God to would now tell me things, explain things, tell me to do or not to do things. Now, the first thing I would have to do in order to follow said God is I would have to know logically that this entity does not lie to me. Because if it did lie to me, I'm dismissing it as God and moving on.
You know what, Roy? Every time you use the word logic, I think that everybody's heckles get up because there is a different understanding of logic, technically, within philosophy, versus what you're using based on the premises that you assume.
Yeah, here's the thing, Roy. My dad's a teacher, and I can just hear my dad's voice in my head when you're talking, saying, "Sure, you're working." I don't see most of the steps that you claim to be making here.
Right. Yeah, and that is what we're asking. Kind of. That's where.
Okay. So what Chris just said is that I'm underthinking this. I'm not putting words in your mouth, Chris. I'm just asking. Is that what you're saying? I'm underthinking this, and I need to.
Well, first of all, Roy, I think that you are super smart. I think that what's missing is, for people that understand logic in a technical sense, there are many steps that are needed between the premise that you propose and the conclusion that you make. And we would like to know what those steps are. Like, when you say that there is a God and it can't lie to me, what are the steps between that other than assertion? Because if you can't provide that, it is merely an assertion that if there is a God, it can't lie to me. Because you've already discounted the Bible.
Exactly.
So let's use pure logic. If there is a God, why isn't there more gods? And why can't the other gods that exist interfere with the God that you think exists? Let's address that first.
Okay, so if I take it a step further and go, okay, so if there are more than one God, then there would be no need for anything beyond one God.
Why?
That is what I
Justify
believe
that.
to be very reasonable. Okay, here's why.
Okay.
Because, number one, if God is more than one, all the attributes and everything would be identical. It would be even more so than a twin. Because in order for God to be God, you can't have anything that's diametrically opposing itself and still say they are both right.
Well, then
So
that makes me want to ask what your definition of God is.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Roy. You keep saying by definition it can or can't be God, but you haven't actually shown me the definition yet.
Okay, so let's do the reverse. Cider, if I say to you that by definition, God doesn't lie to you, what would be would there be any other definition just based on that? Because the only other thing is, if God exists, if you say he can lie to you, he will lie to you, he's supposed to lie to you, any of those, would your definition still be that that is God? Just yes or no will do.
Nobody's asking that. Nobody's posing that.
Yeah,
we're
but he's
just
saying I haven't given
we're
a
addressing.
definition for God beyond the fact that he does not lie, will not lie to me. You understand what I'm saying?
Your assertion of that.
But
does that mean that everybody that doesn't lie is therefore a god?
Yeah.
Okay, wait a second. How can you make that leap?
My cat doesn't lie to me. My cat doesn't lie to me. My cat thinks it's God.
Yeah, I mean, because you're only given one attribute. See, when people ask, like, when we start talking about the concepts of God, the only concept of God that I think is important is the universe creating God. That's that's the one that I'm talking about. So if the reason why you're getting, so when you're actually sitting there and you're contemplating, is there a God or is there a God? You're not asking is there a God because people lie. You're asking is there a God because you're generally thinking about deeper meanings of the universe, where we are, where we came from, why are we here, type things like that. Putting the characteristics of a God as only someone that doesn't lie doesn't answer any of those questions. So if you are going
no, I didn't say only. Okay, maybe you were here at the beginning.
Okay, great. So what are the other characteristics of God that you need to start?
Yeah, he listed them off, Aaron, before you were here. He's just so far addressed just the first one because we haven't been able to get past his first assertion.
Yeah, I think that this is actually just not helping Roy out because it's starting off on such a weak note. Like, why don't you start off on the thing that if there's a God, it's a creator God. That would probably be the logical place to start.
Well, this again, this kind of started back from the last hangout, and they were talking about Jonah and stuff like that, and so and how God, God could not lie if it was him who was telling Jonah to go to Nineveh, and that he would not destroy Nineveh and stuff like that. So that's why we're on this topic of lying, if God can lie or not. And then Roy said that he didn't need the Bible to state that God would not lie. So that's why we're dealing with this attribute of God. The other thing, Roy, I mean, if I go look up a definition of God, usually it's like someone who's all-powerful, all-knowing. Doesn't usually attribute anything about being all truthful or honest all the time. Just an all-powerful, all-knowing God.
Hey, Brother John, real quick, dude, what happened to James? Was he trying to get in? Do you know? Because that's who was having the conversation as well, and he's a Christian. That was
James North.
Yeah. I'll try to contact him if nobody's heard from him.
Well, I haven't heard from him.
I think actually one of the interesting things to look at this from here as well is that you have in this hangout somebody who's a deist, who's had to come to their understanding and definition of God on their own. So I mean, Brother John, is the characteristics of the God in your mind someone that can't lie to you? Is that one of the characteristics that you put on your deistic God?
Well, I don't see this God as a personal God like a Christian would. I have more of a pantheistic version of God, and just as my yin and yang expresses that I have no problem of a source being both what you would call good and evil, or chaos and order. I think they're both needed for creation to exist. So that would be my concept of God. It's not this personal God like you're dealing with a person, or like somebody, like a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to get James into, because he was disagreeing, I think, with Roy on that's who brought up the Jonah and the Nineveh and all that.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. So now we actually have an example of somebody here who, doesn't actually subscribe to like an organized religion that has a concept of God, and in the characteristics of this person. So, Brother John has done exactly the same thing that you're doing in your thought experiment here, but yet the issue of that the deistic God doesn't lie wasn't even one of the things that came up as the characteristics of what he defined as a God. So how do you explain that, Roy?
Yeah, well, he's got presuppositions based on his prior learning and understanding. So if he was starting off at age 10 or 12, he's starting to contemplate, is there God or not? He hasn't been influenced by anybody else. The Bible has never been put into his hands. He doesn't know anything about anything as far as an attribute of any said higher power or God or being that's beyond himself. It's like, I think every human being does this at one point in their life. I don't know, 10, 12, that's kind of sort of where I think I started looking at the world a little differently. Maybe not quite as an adult, but maybe not, as a kid anymore either. So I started thinking for myself, is there a higher power? Does it exist? Is it God? Or whatever else I call it, because it's going to have to be possessing these attributes that are very logical and very reasonable to me as a 10 or 12-year-old kid. So for me personally, I would say to my friend John at age 10, hey John, if God exists, he doesn't lie to me. There's only one God. He's all good, and everything he tells me is good for me, even if I don't believe it or see it. Yeah. Do you have such a God? And John says, well, no, I've been contemplating my navel. Okay, maybe not your navel length, but yeah, and my God, well, he's not personal. He doesn't tell me what to do or not to do. Like, I just roam this planet on my own, making decisions, based on whatever I think, my logic or my reason. Yeah, maybe, maybe not. And yeah. So I don't know. I mean, John, would you have told me to, kiss off if I would have told you that at age 10?
I wouldn't say kiss off, but I'd say, but Roy, from what I'm observing, that's not true. I'm seeing a lot of chaos. I'm seeing a lot of people do bad things. Even, I'm seeing killing. I'm seeing catastrophes. I don't know. I don't see this.
So then your God does lie to you.
He can.
I would say that to you. So because, see, I'm really
So you just created not only your own religion at 10, but your own your first set of apologetics as well, based on the inconsistencies in other people's worldviews. Thank you. That was awesome.
I'll definitely give you that, Sokka. Definitely give you that. Yes, sir.
Can I still go back to my question, which you haven't answered, Roy? Is the God that you're envisioning capable or not of lying?
All right, let's do this because it would be easier. Cider, I don't know you.
Hold on, you like yes or no? That's just a yes or no kind of question.
Yeah, because it
really that's a yes or no.
Yeah, it doesn't.
No. Loaded questions that are yes or no are bullshit, right?
No, I know. That's
Okay.
Have you stopped raping children for fun? That's a yes or no question.
Hey, I haven't.
So saying that you've asked a yes or no question
I haven't beat my wife
is not
in 95
valid.
days. I haven't beat my wife in 95 days.
I accept that. Okay.
Okay,
Roy, let me go with the answer you're going to give, Roy. Sorry.
Let me just do this, Cider, since I don't know you. Let me find out a little bit about you so I know how to address your questions. So I'm Roy from California, and I'm born again, a.k.a. a believer. And so you, sir?
I'm Chris. I'm from the West Midlands in the UK. An atheist.
Okay, perfect. So if you ever did contemplate God, if you ever were to say to yourself, not to anybody else, just to yourself, if God exists, then what would I attribute to his first attribute? What would have to be present, maybe not at its lowest common denominator, but just one of his attributes that you would have to have in place in order for the God of your understanding to be God?
Omnipotence.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? You lost me. I'm sorry.
Someone who understood what I said, can you say it a different way, please?
Yeah, please.
Omnipotence, I would say that if there was a God, it would know way more than me. So it's knowledge, or maybe I'm sorry, omniscience is the word I was looking for.
Yes, I would say omniscience.
I don't know. Again, with me, the first question I'd ask is God good or evil?
No, that's a weird question, Sokka.
It's not a weird question. It
really is.
We take a look at.
It may or may not.
No, Sokka. The only reason why I think it's weird is because it goes down the logical line way too far beyond premises that can be assumed that can be used for deductive logic.
The first time that a 10 or 12-year-old is going to be contemplating God would be at times like, why did my cat die? You know.
Cool. Are you 10 or 12?
I thought that's the one mindset we're going to try to get into here.
Okay.
So at that point in time, if the reason why I'm even contemplating this in the first place is because of something like death, well, then I think that the first question asking, how can God take away my cat would be a very legitimate question.
Okay,
what would you give it as an attribute, Sokka? Forget about the cat. You're just contemplating.
God took my cat.
If
God
there is
evil.
a God, would that God be evil or would that God be good? That's what I'm hearing you say.
Okay, as a 10-year-old, God took my cat. He's evil.
You're starting off with another assumption that God is good.
Sokka, I need to argue against this about this. Because as a 10 or 12-year-old, something that you like that is taken away from you doesn't mean anything about God. Because in the same sense, if God exists, if we're going to engage in the thought experiment that Roy wants us to engage in, which I want to engage in, we need to address it as adults. And as adults, we have to admit that God might have a plan that makes sense to him and is sufficient to him that is beyond our comprehension.
Okay.
So hold on a second. The 10 and 12-year-old analogy is just that. It is underdeveloped.
Okay. The reason why I kept on bringing that up, obviously, was because I'm wondering why, because he kept on stripping us down to a 10 or 11, 12-year-old, whatever, and that's the first thing that would be going through a 10 and 11, 12-year-old is does God lie to me? And it just, it doesn't logically follow. I don't understand why you get to that point. So I was putting forward the kind of question that you might actually see a 10 or 12-year-old ask when you're asking about the characteristics of God. But I think that when you first come to contemplate the idea of God, one of the characteristics that we're already assuming off the bat is that he's good. I want to know how we get to that to begin with. Why? Because everything that we're building off of this is building off the assumption that God necessarily has to be good. Why does God have to be good?
Okay, so I like what Christopher said. We don't have to be 10 or 12. That was just I'm making the story up as I'm going along. This didn't really happen to me, so give me that. Give me that. I'm authoring this as we go along, just to, brain dump and brainstorm.
I'm pulling back a lot of the critiques that I gave earlier.
Exactly. So
I totally want to give you the benefit of the doubt, dude.
Yeah. I like your answer, Chris, for, what would be your attribute of God. It's like, well, he knows more than me. That would definitely be, high on my list as well, because that was why I was contemplating in the first place. There's got to be a higher power, a higher knowledge, a higher this, a higher that, and then I just fill in the blanks as I go along. So, Sokka, let's take your attribute.
If he knows more than you, Roy, could he not lie to you without you even knowing it?
That was where I was going.
No, that's logically that's logically incompatible to me.
Hey, Roy, would you lay out the other attribute, did you already? The ones that we kind of went sidetracked off of it. Would you just say them, and we can go back to still addressing the first one?
What do you remember me saying? Because I don't know if I went too far deep into any more attributes. And
Roy, you were laying out very specific things about the God that you believe in, right? And you were getting interrupted.
Yes, so I was just going one attribute at a time. So at the very core, he would not lie to me.
And
because then the knowledge that he has beyond what I have, which I love what you said, I'd probably put that number 2 now. Because if he has more knowledge than I do about things, and he tells me to do something or not do something, and it doesn't sound logical to me, then I'm going to do it anyway because he doesn't lie to me.
Right. And I think your second one earlier, which would be your third one now, was something about being just and something else. And
oh yeah. Yes, definitely I said that. So this God that I'm contemplating existing, by definition, he has to be fair and just.
Fair and just, right. I don't remember the one after that, but you had another one after that, and that's as far as.
Yeah, and I don't remember it either. So if it did come up,
that he was a perfect being, or something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, exactly. That he's perfect and we are imperfect. And then somebody said, well, what do you mean by perfect, right? And then I said basically.
Exactly where we were at when we.
Or it has something to do with truth. True, being all true, or something like that. I forget too, but yeah, those two things.
That's right.
So you want to talk about? That.
Yeah. You were describing the perfect, and we can talk about that.
29.
After we get some gun oil. I mean, after we get to the through the first part of your argument.
Well, I wanted to address what Sokka was saying. So if Sokka's contemplating at any age 10, whether he lost his cat or not, or at age 110.
Can we just make this easy and lose the age?
Or at 110, because you've had a full life and you now know a lot of experience, and you think, okay, so if God does exist, he has to be an evil God, right? That's what you said, right?
No, I haven't said that. I said, how would you get to the conclusion that God necessarily has your best interest in mind? How do you know that God is good? How do you know that God isn't evil?
Well, see, that's, again, and not using any scriptures anywhere, nothing written, nothing of this God even telling me who he is just yet, okay? Just by my own logical, reasonable thinking, he has to be good. Because if he's not good, then he's not God.
Okay, I think you're misinterpreting the logic here. What you're doing is you are creating a definition, not basing it on anything, and then saying that, hey, it makes sense compared to when I contrast it to the definition that I literally just made to make it sense, make it make sense. Like, I mean, I can say that too. It's like one of the characteristics of God is that he has to be absolutely amazing at making cheese. And then you're like, no, that doesn't make sense at all. Why would God need to make cheese? I'm like, well, does your God make cheese? And you're like, no, of course my God doesn't make cheese. Well, you know what? By the logical conclusion that I've come to, you're not worshiping a god because he doesn't make cheese. That's essentially what you are saying, is that you haven't demonstrated why logically God can't lie and logically God has to be good. You're asserting that it's logic, but you haven't demonstrated. No, I'm not overthinking it. I'm trying to show you that you can't keep on saying that it logically follows that God is good without actually, putting any of the precursors in that need to actually follow to get to that point.
Yeah, I don't have any clue what you would want to tell you that this is logical, but me, it's very simple. If God is evil, that's not God, and I'm an atheist. It's that simple.
Well, your premise and your premise and your conclusion is what kind of he's asking for.
Wait, so if would you give credit to the creator of the universe as God? Am I muted?
No, we heard you.
Sorry. Okay.
I think Roy might have had to hang on for a second. He didn't mute, but he might have stepped back. Are you still there, Roy?
I'm sorry, I'm here. Yeah, sorry.
Hey, I don't mean to be a dick, but Roy is not the only theist in the room.
Right.
Right.
No, is it not?
And so I would love to not be a pylon.
Right.
Of atheists talking to a theist, right? So Tom,
That's fair.
Jude 3 law.
Well, hey, to be fair, he asked for us to kick it, so
I understand, but this has gone on for like a hella long time.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I agree. I just wanted it out there.
Xbox is a theist.
We didn't decide to pile on him, and we were having conversation.
I would love to hear Tom talk about this.
Yeah,
if
Tom,
he's still there.
Yeah.
Jude 3 law, you there?
He's not said anything.
Oh, Tom is drinking coffee.
Oh, how dare you!
Yeah, he was. He did pass. He passed out earlier in the hangout, and he woke up, and he's probably still waking up.
So my
Green's here too. If Green has any comments on it.
Your comments about what?
As well.
Lying?
Well, that's okay. Green has no idea what psychology is. So.
We've already given up knowledge. We don't.
This is the thing is that this is actually a fascinating topic. I really want to talk about this, but it's the way that I'm approaching this is that the characteristics that we give to a god are the characteristics that are passed down through the tradition of whatever. You give the characteristics to people give characteristics to God because
no, Sokka, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe.
No.
Sometimes.
Explain.
No. As an atheist, I am super happy to admit that theists that disagree with me have a valid and consistent way of proposing a position that they have or a model that they have a reality.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
right?
That.
And that is not qualitatively different than the position that I have, right?
I mean, I mentioned that earlier to him that it followed.
Come on. And that's really where it comes down to.
Yep. I think he understood that, Roy. If you're still there, Roy, it's when I
am.
Earlier when I had mentioned to you that I think that just coming from a wrong premise, everything that you say follows, but the premise is I don't know what word to use there. It's wrong. I don't know what other word to use there. But
flawed.
Flawed might be, yeah. The first premise is flawed, and you're not seeing the flaw that we're talking about.
Or if it's not flawed, it's not detailed. It's not fully explained enough.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
That's what I'm getting stuck on.
Well, all I'm saying is if you're listening to a deity or to a person tell you to do and not to do things in your life for your good, if you know that this entity, this deity, this person does lie, then you don't know if what they're telling you to do or not to do at any given time is what you should do, because if it's a lie, you shouldn't do it. You should only do it when it is telling you the truth. So doesn't that logically and reasonably follow that the God of your, even if you concoct it.
Yeah, the God of your imagination.
Yeah,
So,
even the God of
can
your
I just clarify
Wait,
what
hold on a second, guys.
all
Sorry,
the
go on.
time. It would have to tell you the truth all the time. Otherwise, you would have to dismiss this entity as God. It's really that simple, and you could do it inside of 5 seconds.
Hold
That's
on,
my whole point.
that goes to Sokka's point. That's because you're defining God this way.
Yeah.
We're
All right,
asking,
yes, hold on.
how are you getting to define God that way?
Correct. Hold on a second. I think, Frank, if you had something to say, I want to try to give everybody a chance to talk here.
Yeah, please.
About God lying.
Yeah, if God can lie or can't lie, is he incapable of lying, or does he ipso facto have to not lie?
Here, let me put it out to Frank. Frank, so the question I said, if I'm thinking about God or a higher power, and I don't know anything about him, one of the first attributes I would give him is that he cannot lie and will not lie to me ever. That he always has to tell me the truth. This would be the attribute that I would have just out of my own imagination, my own thoughts, my own reasoning. So would you agree or disagree with that? Just putting aside all
I'm so
attributes.
glad you admitted it, though, Roy. I'm so glad you just admitted it. But go ahead, Frank.
Well, I'm going to just read off Ruben's quote. The Quran is pretty clear. Allah is the greatest of all deceivers.
What?
There you go.
The fuck?
Yeah, it's all contingent upon the event, I guess. To say a lie or truth basically implies it's like some entity that could actually tell you something, you know, and Allah is transcendent. Like, that's just beyond something beyond our understanding of how we perceive things, if that makes sense.
Ray, you had something to say?
Nope.
Roy.
But I do want to say, though, Roy, you did just say it could be out of your own imagination.
Whoa, hold it. Where have you guys been?
I don't know, unless did everybody else hear the same thing I heard?
Wait. Nick,
Yeah. Yeah.
this
No,
started out of my own imagination.
Yeah.
I don't know why this is such a revelation from wherever for some of you in the room. This. Oh my goodness, Nick, help me.
no,
In fairness, John, I heard it, but I'm not quite sure what you're getting out of it.
No, I think it's the first time he's actually said it. I think he's implied it this whole time, but this first time he said it is why I think.
I just assumed that was the case. I'm sorry.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
It
No,
goes back to my point of creating God in our own image.
I should have used the I word. Yes, this is all in my logical, reasonable imagination for if there is God, he don't lie to me. Ooh,
Right.
poopy doo. That's the first part I wanted to put on the table. And yes, I'm starting from my own imagination. I know nothing. I've said this several times. It was implied. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I thought I broke it down to the lowest common denominator to start with, but I should have said, yes, out of the imaginations of Roy's mind cometh God with not lying to himself if he
And
does
imaginations are not necessarily true.
I think we could have probably moved on a long time ago to like even a second or third premise if everybody had understood that. But I do realize a lot of people.
I was wondering why we're so stuck on something that was so logical, so reasonable, so easy peasy, as I like to say. Okay, good.
Okay. Well, I didn't catch the imagination part, but I still object that is a terrible logical leap that doesn't actually follow from any premises.
I think regardless of
Sokka, you can imagine a lying God in your universe telling you what to do and not to do, and you being able to be obedient, disobedient at your own understanding of whether or not he or she or it was lying to you. Is that correct?
Hey, Roy.
I wouldn't know they were lying to me.
Roy.
But it doesn't rule the fact
If that is the basic premise from which you're working, we want to know what you have developed from there. So
if God does not lie to me, then I know whatever he tells me do or don't do, I'm going to do it, even if it's not logical or reasonable to me.
according to the Roy logic of
Correct. According to my imagination of who
Yes.
God would be
Okay.
and his attributes in
It's
order
your
for me to
point,
follow
Chris.
him.
Chris, it's
Anything
the
less
point-
than that, I'm dismissing him and I'm an atheist.
Hold on, it's the point that you made a little bit earlier, Chris, and the point I told you we had talked about it before we went on air. That it's the premise that he's starting with that I think is flawed,
Yes.
and that's it is from my point of view that I'm seeing. I think everything you say follows from your premise that you're saying. Maybe you're not explaining it complete or whatever. Maybe some of it's implied, but I think what you're saying follows from what you're saying. It's just a flawed premise.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. I totally grant you that it's from from the imaginations of Roy's mind, to quote you. But even your imagined premise is flawed, and so that's what I've been. That's one of the things I've been trying to nail. There are massive steps that I don't see. That I don't. There are massive
Okay, so
steps.
Well, you have to admit that at least it can be flawed because you're only human.
It is also true.
Well, Chris, I'll give
Well,
you an opportunity.
well,
So, if God exists in the mind and the imagination of Chris, what would be one of the top attributes of God for you?
Which Chris are you talking to now? You talking to me or
You,
Mouse?
sir. You.
Yeah.
You,
He has
Sutter.
12-inch legs.
Yeah, you, Sutter.
Okay. What would one of the top attributes of God be for me?
Yes, sir. Yes, exactly.
I think I would think omniscience and the ability to the ability to create something out of no. I need to rephrase. I need a million
Here,
miles to think about this.
Add sword.
I think I'm going to go with omniscience. I'm going to go with omniscience just to throw some shit out there.
Final answer?
Looking for $100.
Final answer?
Yes, omniscient. I'm sorry.
Survey says.
Survey says. Ding, 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 ding.
I'm
Number
nearly
one
at
answer.
I'm nearly at the bottom of this glass, you know. I'm just shooting the shit here, you know.
Oh, and so when you put that out there,
talking.
so Cider, when you put that out there, I will agree with you. So now we need to just go, okay, so what would be another attribute? You understand what I'm saying? And we keep going until we disagree.
Would you agree with it? If I just came up with one, sword swallowing is an attribute of him. He can sword swallow more.
Yeah, I disagree. You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
That's what I'm saying. On what basis would you have to disagree with that?
It's not an attribute. That's a skill, bro. I'm talking about attributes.
That's his nature. He can sword swallow more.
Nah. That's not his nature. That's not a nature. That's a skill. We have to stay in the same genre of attributes. These are attributes.
Okay, what's
you see what you're getting here is dueling imaginations. That's all it's coming down to.
right? Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I'm assuming we are all mature here. I hope I assume correctly.
I resent that. I'm extremely immature.
Hold on, I thought we were going from
and
imagination.
I'm saying that in jest. I'm saying that in jest.
I thought we were going from an imagination of a 12-year-old.
All we need, even at 12, a little bit. I understood the difference between a skill set and an attribute. So anyway,
yeah, tell me the difference real quick, just so I can come up with a better attribute.
So well, here's the thing. So in my mind, where I was going with all of this in the other room before we decided to go, and actually record this, which I think this is a great topic for me personally.
Yeah,
so I don't know if you guys enjoy it or not. But here's the thing. So we keep going until we disagree. Like if I'm talking with one person or a million people or whatever, it's like I say this is an attribute of God. You agree? Yes. No. Okay, so then as soon as we disagree on the attribute, now we have a discussion going. So then one person attempts to not convince, not convert, not prove, but just share their perspective, right? Because I never, ever change my mind. But I will make a new decision based on new information in a heartbeat. So please, give me new information so that I can now take the information that I had, which gave me this decision. I now take your new information. I go, okay, I can see that. Yes, now I'm making a new decision, but now I'm not changing my mind. Yes, it's words. Yes, it's semantics, but that's who I am. Now, if you're not like me, that's okay. You can stone me for not being like you, but you know what? I don't have to be like you. You let me be me, I'll let you be you, and you know what? We'll have a wonderful friendship if you come comprehend what I'm saying. I'm not saying stay flawed in your character may be flawed. My character is certainly flawed, but the delivery of which we use, that should remain the same. Our personality should be our personality. You understand? So what would be another attribute anybody would go? Let's get to the
I want to give a scenario first, Roy. I have a question, Roy, okay? All right. Given that you're God, cannot lie, okay? Let's go back, I don't know, we're going back a few thousand years. Nothing's set in stone. You hear a voice, tells you, Roy, I want you to take your son up to this mountain and sacrifice him. What do?
I do it.
That doesn't go against your logic at all? That you should not kill
Not at all, because if my
your
God
son?
doesn't lie, then he's doing this for my good. And even if I don't understand it logically or reasonably, it doesn't matter. If God is God, then that's who he is. He thinks beyond me. He knows beyond me. He is beyond me. So therefore, I will just do what he says do, because I know that he is not going to do anything that isn't good for me.
But wait, that doesn't in your logic, that doesn't raise some flags for you that you're hearing a voice?
No, not at all. No, not at all.
Really?
There was another room I was in. Let me say this real quickly. There was another room I was in last week with this gentleman. I forget his name, Burns or something or other. And he made a statement. This is the first time I've ever been in a room with him. And he made a statement. He said, all Christians have doubt. And I immediately came off mic, and that was the first thing I even said in the room after about 10 or 20, 30 minutes. And I said, no, hold on. What do you mean all Christians? I'm a Christian. I've never, ever doubted God. So you have to revise that. All Christians but Roy, right, doubt God, because I never have. So anyway, I hope that helps you to understand that I would still do that.
How would you ever know you were wrong at that point, then? If you were wrong.
How would I ever know if I was wrong listening to God who never lies to me?
Right.
Listen to that question.
Without doubting.
How would I know I was ever wrong doing or not doing what the God who never lies to me says for me to do or not do? That question is answered in and of itself.
No, even the part about giving him the attribute of the not lying. Without doubting that, how would you ever know if you were wrong about it?
Okay, I'm not following. So give me the scenario. Are you using the same scenario with the sacrificing my son?
No, I was just using the God that can't lie that you're saying.
Let's talk about truth.
Let's do that.
You're back.
Yeah, please. You can probably say it way more eloquent. I can't even say it eloquently than I can.
Okay. How is what you're talking about truth compared to the truth of other people that disagree with you?
Yes.
That means that the merit of the validity of your truth is based on the merit of your validity. We don't find it compelling, so compel us. Go.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I follow that, but I don't have to know anything more than God does not lie to me to do or not do what he tells me to do.
That is a truth. That is a truth that you need to justify. Go.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're looking for. How do I justify? How do I justify something that I just said has justification?
So what separates your belief from just a tacit theory in a colloquial sense?
In the non-scientific sense of that.
Like why can't we dismiss what you're saying?
Yeah,
What prevents us from dismissing what you're saying? What makes what you're saying compelling to us beyond how you understand it?
It doesn't. It doesn't. Because unless you know what I know, you're not going to come to the same conclusion.
Okay, what do you know that we don't know?
I know that God doesn't lie to me.
How?
How do you know that? He says.
Because in my imagination of the definition of God, if he does lie to me, there is no God and I'm an atheist.
What if you're
What is your
wrong?
definition of God?
I can't be wrong.
What is your definition of God?
That's the point. It's like it's easy peasy. Listen, guys,
on,
it's so
hold on,
easy.
no.
Even a caveman can understand this. reasoning. You know,
Oh
come
my
reason
God! I
with
want to
me.
get Geico as my auto insurance all of a sudden.
I know.
Roy, I totally
That's a
get
pretty
it.
good insurance.
Good on you. Good on you.
Yep. And that's it. You said you can never be wrong. That's a bold claim. You usually don't hear that.
See, if I take a person who's not me and give them the complete opposite.
Everybody is not you. Everybody is not you, Ray. FYI.
So
I just want to interject here for a second. Hold on. I just want to ask if Tom is still in the room, because I haven't seen anything in the chat, or he hasn't said anything. If not, can you bow out and maybe perhaps let someone else who wants to come in? Thanks.
I'll message him.
Passed out.
I'll message him on the external.
Yeah,
Hey man, if you want me to go,
step
I'll go.
out.
yeah, Reuben said that there's 6 people waiting. So
Yeah, I think I'll
if
step
you're
out.
not there or AFK or whatever,
Not really a lot to contribute here.
Oh, let me message him, give him a minute, and then if he doesn't respond to the external, which will ding whenever he gets the message. That way he can come back if we boot him, he can't.
I'm sorry. Who was that ex? My wife was talking to me.
I mean, give him 30 seconds, a minute.
Who?
I'm messaging him on the external, so it'll ding when he gets it, and that way if he leaves on his own, he can come back. If we boot,
Okay.
he can come back.
Okay.
And you're Roy.
Just give him a second.
Roy, I just want to make it clear that we may have disagreements, but I'm having super fun talking about them.
Yep.
Because you and I seem to be on the same page about like being able to talk about disagreements, as compared to like parodying each other into like strawman arguments or horseshit like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
What do I feel like? What do I feel like Maudy's targeting me with that comment?
Yeah, likewise. Likewise.
No. See.
I'm not talking about anybody else on the panel, Saga.
It's not you, Saka. It's not about you, bro.
Chris, nobody else is you.
Xbox wins the internet. Xbox.
So the first thing I want to say is I want to
wins
acknowledge what I deem to be a sincere compliment coming from Christopher. So thank you, Chris. I appreciate your words. Ditto,
I'm
my
not
friend.
playing. I really am not playing.
I take it as a sincere compliment. I mean, listen, if one of the things that I do best, as far as I think I do best, is I'm not here to slander, I'm not here to degrade, I'm not here to pound you into the ground. I'm here to share information, and if we can be friends in the process and laugh a little or a lot, in my case, I love laughing. So a relationship for me has to be fun, funny, and fruitful. I can learn from anybody that I want to learn from. So, yeah, good on you for acknowledging that, and thank you so much. I appreciate that, because my daddy taught me, when somebody compliments you, say thank you. That's it. That's all you got to say. And I'm doing that. So thank you.
Roy, with that, I just want to welcome Ask an Atheist, a.k.a. Sydney. How you doing, Sydney? I'm sure you've been listening. Anything? Want to add your thoughts, man? Sid?
Hey, John, before Sid speaks, I think Chris wanted to finish up on the thought of what I and he were saying back and forth. We're giving each other both sincere compliments. I think you're a gentleman and a scholar, Chris. I don't really know you.
Hey, it's not about licking each other's bungholes. You know what I mean?
Well,
I mean, let's face it. The ability. No, hold on a second. The point that I wanted to make was you are a minority on this panel, and you are handling these questions in such a sincere way. And I think that is what separates these kind of conversations from the horseshit conversations that exist, where people are like butting heads for the purpose of butting heads,
nitpicking,
and I have to admit, I apologize. I came on a little strong at the beginning of this hangout, Roy, and even though I called you Ray. I think that it's a testament to our integrity towards working towards having an actual civil and respectful conversation that led us towards this. So, that being said, there are new people in the conversation.
Hello,
This is not my hangout.
everybody.
Yeah, just to finish up and put a cap on that, I couldn't agree more with you. I believe that people respond in kind. And if somebody wants to ruffle my feathers, that is impossible. Because one of the attributes of Roy Montero, he is feather ruffleness.
Even if I call you Ray?
A feather ruffleness. A feather ruffleness.
You can't push my buttons because I ain't got no buttons that need to be pushed. Left
And that's
or
why
right.
you suck.
I could create some buttons for you.
That's because
Roy,
Roy has reached the stage of total delusion.
Wrong.
all birds lose some feathers, though.
Yeah,
Right,
screw
Roy?
you, Roy.
No, go ahead, Sydney. I think they're ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Sid.
I said that Roy has reached the level of total delusion. That's why.
I love you too, Sid.
That's why he can't be moved.
He loves you.
But
Sid, please, let's not let
Sid's my friend.
me
Now,
regret-
Sid was my enemy.
do you drink beer, Roy?
No, I don't. I don't, Sid.
Then how can we be friends?
Well, if that's what it takes, okay, Sid. I can drink a beer with you.
Alright, now you're talking.
Look at that. You found common ground right away. It took us like an hour.
Yeah. Oh, dear Lord.
No, I agree with Chris on everything you said. That's it. Me and Roy have great conversations, and he is stubborn as hell. He admits it.
Absolutely. I am stubborn.
But-
I am stubborn, but in a
But
good
that
way.
does not change anything, man.
But in a
Having
good way.
friends that are stubborn does not change that they are good friends or good acquaintances or whatever on the intertubes.
Yeah.
That is a testament of the diversity that exists. And if you don't want diversity, then go ahead and take care of that dogmatic ideology that you have.
Well, here's what I believe. I believe that if you have a friend that thinks exactly like you do, agrees with everything that you agree with, I mean, there's no need for one of you in this relationship. It's like
None.
boring. Give me
God,
somebody
kill
that will
me.
challenge me.
Roy, kill me. Kill me dead.
And if you're not wanting to
It makes me feel like Ray.
if you're not wanting to, if you're not wanting to engage in a discussion and you go into a room that's having a discussion, you're in there just to, move along. And it's same likewise if you go into a room that's just fighting and you want a discussion, move along. I mean, it's not that hard.
Yeah, we've all heard the term, right, guys? Argutainment. Okay, that's what some of these hangouts have turned into. It's just, we know if a certain individual is in that room, it's going to be ugly. There's going to be fighting. There's going to be
Hey,
yelling
Roy,
and screaming.
if
I'm
I
out.
offered you an opportunity to do edutainment, would you be into that?
Edutainment and frienducation, I'm in.
Come on now.
I had not heard argutainment, but I'm going to use that term a whole lot more.
Isn't it apropos? Cider, isn't it
Absolutely
apropos?
right. It's
You know,
sums
people-
up about
you-
94% of the internet.
Well, here's what I've heard. I've heard that somebody say, I really don't like to engage in it, but I got to admit, it's a guilty pleasure, and I like to watch it.
As
You know what I'm
as far as arguments go, I go with it. There's a line in one of Terry Pratchett's novels where one character says to another, "Dwarves are very argumentative, sir, but of course many wouldn't agree." I think arguments are basically summed up that way. We just shoot the shit.
Hey, and like I said, that's almost an opening. You mind, Brother John, if I do a plug for our new channel? If you're still here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, me and Sokka and I have a channel. We're starting up Monday, our first show. We're going to try to knock down the 8-hour hangouts into like a 90-minute, maybe an hour discussion of people that want to have discussion and have different views against you, kind of like we had in here. And it's Monday, Deeper Than Dogma is the channel. I'm not sure what time it starts. I think Sokka has a little bit more.
Thursday's our first one.
Okay.
The problem of evil.
Ooh, very good.
All right, Deeper Than Dogma on YouTube. Put a link in the event page, X or soccer, or if you want to put a link in the chat as well. Just remember the audience can't see the chat. And also just remind everybody here. I know usually you see me on with the other avatar. It's because of the whole Google mess up, and this is the only way I can. That's it's connected to my YouTube channel, original YouTube channel. So don't forget to add me here as well. So we came to a conclusion: God can lie.
I think we've come to the conclusion that we don't agree, and that's fine. With the amount of mutual ass-licking that's happened over the past 20 minutes.
Right.
Which I'm not against, by the way.
Yeah, it was good to see it and experience it because it's a rare thing on most of these days.
Hey, some people find it very difficult to admit that. I got a lot of props to Mr. Mouty for even saying that in the first place, because I rarely get that kind of what do you call it, compliment. Sometimes I get a compliment, but it's backhanded, which is not a compliment at all. You know what I mean? So I do appreciate it, especially when it comes from someone who doesn't share my belief.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what? I want you to be as articulate as you can about what you profess.
Yeah, and I'm a very simple guy. I'm just an everyday guy. I don't have the eloquence of words, the definitions, and all the 2- and 3-syllable words. I'm a simple guy. I lowest common denominator this for everybody. It's like I want to talk to you guys like I talk to anybody that needs to understand what I'm saying, whether that be a 5-year-old, a 50-year-old, or beyond.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not well worded either. So.
5-year-old. Yep. Sorry, Saka.
No, I was gonna say I'm not really good with my wordage.
I have people, like I was just saying, I have people try to explain it to me like I'm 5, for the most part. I mean, it's especially these big complicated things. I mean, oversimplify the crap out of them to begin with for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I sound like I'm frustrated when I'm talking, it's actually because I'm playing Destiny right now and getting my ass handed to me. So I'm a little cross.
You need to put a sign up saying "playing a game." So cannot be responsible for my attributes.
Yeah, so if I randomly go on like a tangent of swearing at somebody, it's not you. It's probably because the Fallen just killed me.
It's on the internet.
I need to put the same up for when I'm drinking.
Well, that's a little bit different.
Well, no, drinking, that's the same as ingesting truth serum, yes? Sutter?
Say again?
Yeah, I think that's
ingesting. Drinking, isn't drinking the same as ingesting truth serum?
Yeah,
I don't know. I think drunk people think they're ingesting wisdom serum.
I think that's what Mouty got. That's why he was responding to you like that.
Well, you know what they say. They say the drunk man says what the sober man thinks.
I just think you're all bloody marvelous, really.
Yeah, if you want to know what a person really thinks of you, go drinking with them. They'll tell you.
You know what? It's funny. I used to have a little bit of a sidetrack, derail conversation, whatever type thing going on. But I used to have a friend named AJ that I used to go drinking with all the time, and then it just got to the point that I couldn't drink with him anymore. He was an asshole. That was it. I mean, it wasn't like like the true feelings for me came out. I mean, he was just one of those guys that when he drank, he just became the biggest prick in the world, and nobody wanted to be around him.
I'm right here, Saka. I'm right here.
Chris, I said AJ. I used the fake name.
No, it happens with some people, right? I mean, you get it where
I'm
just
so
they're
pissed. I have so much hate.
Fuck you, Mouty.
What?
Fuck you, Mouty.
Oh.
But now some people are affected by it pretty badly, and you'll just see their whatever personality. I mean, I just tend to be personified when I drink, to the point of passing out. Other people they change. Like, I don't get the fight mentality. You get these fucking bus stop boxers, and it's just like, why? It's just and some people just turn to flats.
Yeah. They just can't. They just can't maintain. Yep.
I get laid back and fucking chatty Cathy.
Oh, I'm everyone's fucking clown. That's the problem, right?
It just is. I think when you get inebriated, it's just that's who you are. You know. I don't know. Maybe it's a character flaw. You can't change it. I don't know.
Yeah. Can I just say something real quick, Ray? I know you're UK based, but I get the sense you're of American heritage or North American heritage.
Yeah.
Can I just say how nice it is to hear someone with that kind of accent say "twat" the right way?
Twat. One of my favorite sayings at the moment is twat magnet.
Yep.
Describing someone as a twat magnet is fucking beautiful.
You used one the other day that was funny as hell. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't twat, but I can remember.
Son of a bitch.
It was a fucked up swear that I'd never heard before.
Belland?
It'll be one of the English ones, right?
Belland?
No, it was more than one word. Yeah, I hadn't heard that one until maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, when they were talking about Matt Bell.
I thought that line was fairly self-descriptive, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I never heard anybody say it, and so it didn't click with me, and they were saying it. Okay.
If someone calls it a Columbo, that might be a bit more obscure. A
Or is
one-eyed Bobby in a wrinkled leather coat.
Whatever you said the other day was like the twat man, like it was a couple words saying.
I'll say it again one day. I tend to repeat myself a lot, so.
Mm-hmm.
It comes
Name
to
me someone who doesn't.
If it was recorded.
one of those 8-hour hangouts.
It was just the other day. So it wasn't one of mine. And it might not have been recorded. It might have been one of mine, but it might have been just a video call.
I love one, yeah.
So it was one of yours, but it might not be. But it was, but it might not be.
Yeah, it might not be one of my 8-hour ones, my live ones. The off-air ones go longer than the 8 hours.
Yeah. I'm in equal measure impressed and mortified by people that can run a hangout for 8 hours or be on a hangout for 8 hours.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes the time just flies by, man. I don't even know what it is. I have things to do, and next thing I know, it's like, wow, I've been in here for 4 hours.
I mean, here's the thing. With the greatest respect, you all are people who live in my computer. I have things to do. You know.
We are a figment of your imagination.
No, you're
Yeah,
you're
I
a
love
figment.
saying that myself. All my friends live in my computer.
So you're all solipsist.
They literally do.
Why does everybody hound on me for being a solipsist if all y'all are just admitting you're solipsist?
I said that to someone the other day. I'll say, I was talking to someone the other day, and I forget to explain that it's online. And the second you say that, sometimes people glaze over, and then they fucking look at Facebook for 45 minutes, and it's like, this is much better interaction. But somehow it's seen as reclusive, or it's like you're some sort of fucking hobbit, living in a hole because you talk to people online in a way that isn't lols, triple X, just bought my shopping from Mazda. I mean, it's like, whatever the fuck, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean,
real quickly, I just want to say welcome to the Upala. Is that how you pronounce it? The Upala?
You got it 100% correctly.
All right.
boom,
And I believe
shakalaka.
also anybody who's listening, we do have a spot open before, I don't like to, if we're on a topic, to go too long, or if we go into a major tangent for the sake of just, for YouTube and stuff like that. So I'm going to ask the Opera if anything about the topic you want to add.
I came in a little late, so I missed a little bit of the groundwork. I wanted to know if a truthful God included a God who would not lie by omission.
Ooh.
By omission or by proxy?
Ooh.
You still there, Ray? I mean, Roy?
As soon as Mousy leaves, somebody else is doing it.
Yep.
Thanks, Nick. I'll remember that.
Ray,
Although there is Ray in the room, so you are certainly forgiven. It's like, oh yeah, no, he wasn't talking to Ray. He was talking to Roy. Okay, can you restate what was said, because I didn't quite get it? So there's no need for me to ask him to say it again because I might still not get it. Can anybody reword that for me?
Does lying, when you say God can't lie or doesn't lie, are you saying that, are you defining lying to include lying by omission or lying by proxy or any other type of things like that?
Yes. I can answer that with one word. Yes, I am including that. Yes.
So is not being 100% upfront truthful a form of lying?
I would need more of a definition. In other words, if God, who knows more than I do, and I could never understand what he understands, even if he explained it to me like he would to Lucy, would that be wrong? No.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're saying just because you don't understand it 100%, it doesn't mean he's lying.
Right, and it doesn't mean he even needs to tell me about it, because after he's done telling me about it, I still won't understand it, so it's not like he's omitting anything, you know, because I really don't need to know. Like, for example, when, well, no, I can't go there because this is just out of my imagination. Sorry.
No, I was just trying to think of things that could break this, you know, like stress test the idea, and the idea, you know, that there could be an evil God who's 100% truthful, but then can just only say what is necessary to continue its evil thing. Like, you know, at one point tell you to just go ahead and cut off your own hand because it would be vastly amusing to this, you know, much more powerful creature. Or to see you do that, hypothetically.
Yeah, so I never got to any of the other attributes. So another attribute I would get to would be he can't be evil. If he tells the truth, always, and he doesn't lie to me, and he's evil, all bets are off, and I'm an atheist.
How does that follow?
Because if he's evil, even if he's not lying to me, like was just explained, why would I want to cut off my hand just for his amusement? Because he's evil. See, God, by definition, would not be evil. By definition.
By your
Here we go again.
Yeah.
That'd be by
But
your.
you have to understand that, because, see, if God told you to cut off your hand and he was God and you acknowledged him as such, would you cut off your hand?
Goes back to my question: would you kill your son?
Yes.
Roy says he would.
Because I know
Would
he's
you
not
want to
evil.
cut your hand off? If
This
God,
is not for his evil pleasure. This is because it's good for me and good for my son.
no, you don't know that. You don't know that.
I do know that. Yes.
No, you
By
don't.
logical definition of who God is, I know that. I have to know that.
Well, can't we come up with an easy scenario where God will smite you unless you cut off your hand for its amusement? So thus God tells you, in your best interest, it's your best interest to cut off your hand for your continued mortal existence.
Yes.
Good question.
Yes. Yes. Then I would. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Put to me that way, absolutely. Because if he's all good and if he's all knowing, which means he doesn't lie to me, because you can't lie to me.
Okay, I guess I backtracked
not lie
on
to me
the
without being all knowing and follows. By definition, then yes, I would do exactly what you said. I would cut off my hand if that was the good for me and the people around me. Yes.
All right.
Yeah, the part I find interesting is like, are we just saying this hypothetically? I mean, Roy, is there a time when God has? I mean, how does God influence you in terms of when you say, if he tells me, that's the part I found interesting. How is he telling you what to do in choices or in decisions in your life? Or
well, in my imagination, I haven't got that far yet, right? But if you're asking me now because I am a believer, then yes, I would do exactly what you said. I would cut off my hand. That was good for me and the people around me. Yeah. Still listening to the. Yeah, thank you.
Sarah, you gotta cut off the live feed if you have it running.
Yeah, that's what was happening. So Ray, if I understand your question correctly, you're now asking me in my present state, because I do believe God, I do believe the Bible, I do believe Jesus from that vantage point, yes? Not my imaginary one that I'm just going along putting together.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. Okay, so I lost the question, so please ask me one more
So
time.
let's say we gave the example of, or someone gave the example of if God told you to kill your son on a mountaintop or whatever, how, that's just hypothetical, right? But how is God actually helping you in these decisions? How is God communicating to you?
Okay, so in the olden days, aka the Old Testament, yeah, people actually heard God's voice, like in an audible voice. Today, I don't have that anymore for me. I don't hear an audible voice, but I do hear his voice, so to speak, when the Bible says, my sheep hear my voice.
Wait a minute, Roy.
So,
We're going under the assumption away
yeah,
from
that's
the
what Ray is
Bible,
asking,
remember?
though.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought
Yeah,
we were still
so,
going under the same premise from
no,
before,
no, he's asking me this
assuming
question for
out of the
actual
Bible, away from
now.
the
Yeah,
Bible.
actual me now. Yeah, because that's what I asked him too. So is this my imagination still, or is this the actual me now? And so he says, no, this is the actual you now. How do you hear? How do you know you're hearing God speak these words to you? So God speaks to me 4 main ways. There are other ways, because I'm not going to put God in the box. There are other ways that God speaks to me, and when he does, I will know it then. It's like, oh, okay, I heard you. Got it. So my conscience is the main way I hear him. This is how he speaks to my spirit, which everyone else who does not have an alive spirit yet, aka non-believers, they will hear him in their conscience. It's their thoughts. It's like, where'd that thought come from? Well, it might have came from God. So, but you don't know what you don't know if you don't know God's word. So the main reason, or excuse me, the main way God speaks to me is through his word, the Bible. That way I know when I have a thought, whether it's from God or not. Because if it's counter to what God has already told me in his word, then of course it wasn't him, because he cannot lie. So then I have to attribute it to Satan and or my own thought that just, came into my head randomly, like, oh man, I got to kill my kids, because they're being so unruly. I mean, what parent hasn't said, or at least thought, man, kids are making me so angry, I could just kill my kids, or whatever, or I want to kick my dog because I'm having a bad day, or something like that. Those are not God's thoughts. God would never put those kind of thoughts in you, and you would never hear those thoughts directly from God. So there's a way to discern the thoughts, which is actually how God speaks to us. And then, of course, he can speak to us in circumstances. He can speak to us through other people. I mean, I can hear God's word and what to do and what not to do through some of my friends, through some of my non-friends who are just complete strangers who may say something or do something, and so all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. God, okay, I'll do that. I don't know if that helps you or not, but yeah, those are the main ways that I know God speaks to me.
How would you be able to discern your own thoughts versus what, as you're kind of saying that God is putting into your head as far as your conscience goes, given that God has given mankind free will and therefore free thought? So how would you be able to even discern your own free thought and free will thoughts from what God is telling you through your conscience?
Great question. Sarah, hi. I don't remember speaking with you before. I'm Roy from California. Hi, nice to meet you.
Hello. I live in North Carolina.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. I know some people out there. Believer, non-believer, Sarah?
I'm actually a Wiccan.
So, believer or non-believer?
Non-believer in Christianity.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm a believer. So coming at that, now I know how to answer you, because it does make a difference if I'm answering a believer or non-believer. So, yeah, basically, I know if it's God's or not God's by the Bible, first and foremost. And if I don't have an exact verse, then I use my discerning ability, which, aka my best educated guess. So if I feel good and at peace about something that the Bible is silent about, that I don't know for sure is God's word or not, but I now have to make that decision. Do I do or not do this thing which I'm about to do because I had the thought? Then I'm going to go with, I'm going to think it through. Are the consequences going to be favorable for me and anyone and everyone involved. In other words, I'll take all of my intellectual knowledge and then put it into my heart and say, is there peace there? Because, see, the Holy Spirit will lead me into all truth. How does he do that? Mainly because of peace. If I have peace about killing my son because I heard that word, and I'm not a deranged person and I'm still of sound mind, then the Bible says there's no need for me to sacrifice my son anymore today. So that would be a demonic thought or a thought that, is not God. So hopefully that helps.
Can I ask a question, Roy?
Please.
You've mentioned several times where you've asked people whether they're believers or non-believers, and you've said that affects how you ask the various questions that you've asked. Can I ask how that actually affects the questions you ask?
Right. So if you're a believer, then I will answer you with an understanding that a believer has, and if you're a non-believer, then I will answer you with the understanding that a non-believer has, or the best that I possibly can, because I don't know exactly how much unbelief you have.
Okay. That's fine. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, no. My pleasure to answer that, because you'll find that probably, and I'm not being egotistical or narcissistic or anything like that, but you'll find that, I'm not like most believers.
That's
and
fair.
The obvious thing that stands out for me, which hopefully stands out for you, is that I don't care what you do. I mean, I care what you do, but I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
because God doesn't care what you do. He lets you do whatever you want to do. I mean, he cares, of course, but he's not going to force you to do anything, believe anything, say anything, and neither am I. I'm going to be as Christ-like as I possibly can, which means that if you don't believe the truth, then that's okay. I'm not going to pound it into you and, draw and quarter you and pull off limbs until you believe it. It's like, nah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. No, that's fair, and as much as I castigated people for
you know what?
the mutual ass licking that was going on earlier,
I'm sorry.
that's partly why you've got so many atheists talking to you.
All right, bye.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last part.
Heavy conversation.
No.
Hold on, I just want to say hello, Carl. Hey,
Hold
Ryan.
on. Yeah, it's okay, John. Hey, John. How you doing? Hey, everybody.
Hey, what's up?
I wanted to hear I didn't hear the last part of what you said. That's why you've got so many atheists talking to you. Cider. Oh, well, Chris isn't here anymore, so I'll just call you Chris.
Yeah. No,
Chris,
no.
could you say that last part again, please?
Yeah, no, I was just saying I think that's why you have so many atheists who are willing to talk to you, in the sense that you're not you're not judging, in the sense, which is a nice change up. And
because
like
Christians are not supposed to judge you guys. We're not supposed to. I don't know any Christian who says we're supposed to judge non-believers is out of their gourd.
Yeah, well, that's a different argument, but well, this is the thing, because I fervently disagree with you on practically everything that you brought to this conversation, but I'm still talking to you, so you must be doing something right.
And
or it's the alcohol, Chris.
Good on you, my friend. Good on you. I like
Hey,
you.
that's a good post. Wait a minute, I gotta go get some beer. I'll be right back.
I believe Sarah was next. I think Sarah wanted to say something, and then or John, you're running the show, so
yeah.
Sarah wanted to say
Thank
something.
you. All right. Yeah, Sarah, you wanted to finish your thought. Sorry about that.
I had asked him that question. That was the only thought that I had at the moment. But the one thing that has been kind of going through my mind as I've been watching this hangout is, as putting it kind of on a base level, in that, God as like a protector, or as they call him, like a father and stuff like that. What is your opinion on lying to protect one that you love?
Well, I'm going to give you an actual story, a true story. I'm 57 years old. My mom is going to be 81 in 6 days. She is a Holocaust survivor. That makes me a proud son of a Holocaust survivor. She's the oldest of 6 kids. She was in Hitler's concentration camp at age 11, and she watched her mom die in that concentration camp. So Hitler killed her mom. She got out, and she decided not to be bitter, but to be better. So if somebody said, "Hey, Roy, is there any Jews, living here in the house or whatever?" It's like, and I know my mom is there. It's like, no, she's not here. Go away. Now, Did I lie? Yes.
Okay, now.
Is lying a sin? Yes. Am I going to suffer the consequences?
No.
Yes. Do you have another question?
No.
Carlton, don't be an asshole until you've got to talking.
I can jump right in.
Is there a point of discussion, or are we just rambling?
No. Well, obviously, the topic is originally can
My
God
beer,
law.
look what you guys are doing, man. I'm losing my beer.
Spilling your
Yeah,
juice.
Ryan.
Oh, man, that's good beer, too.
Hold on, Carlton.
No, I'm
Can you
sorry.
hear me, Carlton?
I can.
Okay.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
I hear you. Sorry, I was freaking out here. You know, I just got the
Yeah,
thing. I'm losing it.
if you would, John,
Yeah.
why don't you catch everybody up to speed so that way everybody can be up to speed. I think you guys have been watching on the outside and stuff, so go ahead, John.
Yeah, Ryan. This is kind of a carryover from an off-air hangout. So we were talking about can God lie, and we were specifically talking to Roy about asking Roy, and because he mentioned that he can know that God cannot lie aside from the Bible. So that was the discussion that we were
God
having.
is constant.
I know that you're a Bible-believing Christian. So maybe you want to maybe you would like to answer the question. Yeah.
God is
Honestly, back to
constant.
Ray. It's bedtime for Ray. So good night, Ray. Nice meeting you,
Yeah, I
my
was
friend.
going to say,
Always a
it's
pleasure
almost
talking
10 to
you.
3, so I better go.
I hear you. I hear you. Have a
Good
great
night,
day.
Ray. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, later's Ray or Roy. Or Ray or Roy.
No, Roy is staying and Ray is leaving. So now there's only going to be one.
Give it 5 minutes, you'll be Ray again, man.
Yeah, I was just spitballing off what Mousy was screwing up earlier. That's all I was going.
Hey, for those of you who know
All right,
Christopher
wait.
Mowdy, I'm gonna ask this question. Do you think
Wait, hold on, Roy, hold on, we forgot.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
Yes, please. I welcomed Ryan in. I caught him up to speed, so I wanted to see if he had anything to say. So,
Go. Ryan.
Hey, I'm sorry, there's a slight lag.
Oh.
I would say, in my opinion, which is what we all have opinions, right? So our man-made interpretations are going to lead to delusions and falseness. But what I believe is that God is constant, therefore never lies, and that's a very simple answer in my opinion.
Okay.
And Ryan's a believer, you said, John?
Ryan, yes, he is.
Okay, great. I agree with you, Ryan.
Okay.
That's all I have to say. If that's the question, that's my answer. But
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm holding back from asking how you know God is constant, but
Go for it. Go.
I'm
holding back from asking you. How do you think you're holding back when you actually asked a question?
I was being slightly ironic.
Yeah.
Well, I would ask. Can I ask a question there, Brother John?
Of course, Carlton.
Thank you, sir. So, what do we mean by lie? Give me a definition. Doesn't have to be complicated.
I think Roy had a definition of this.
Not telling the truth.
And Brother John, and real quick, I don't mean to interrupt. I do have my friend Erica here sitting with me, and she's learned important in verse as well, and so she asked again. The question is, does God lie, or did God lie, or can God lie? And of course, there are many different gods that people believe in, but in my belief, again, I answered, and so I just want you to say, so if you hear Erica chime in, that's because she has her perspective as well, which should be valued.
Nice. Hi, Erica.
Hi, Erica.
From California.
Hi.
Well, so here's my question. Here's my question. If for example, if Roy asks me and he says, Carl, was it raining today in Chattanooga? And I say, yes, it was. It was not, by the way. If I say yes, it was, I obviously have told Roy a lie. But what if Roy asks me, or just asks a general question, and he says, did it rain in Chattanooga today? And instead of me answering him directly, I whisper in Brother John's ear, and I say, you know, because I know Brother John, he loves to lie. So I say, Brother John, why don't you answer Roy? And Brother John answers Roy, and he says, yes, it rained. Now, obviously, Brother John told a lie.
What about the Jesuit oath? Is that what you're implying? The Jesuit oath?
No. But what I'm saying is, did I, by asking Brother John to lie, or by sending Brother John to answer that question, knowing he would lie, do I, by extension, is that also a lie for me? In other words, if I intentionally do something that deceives somebody, does that count as a lie, even if I don't do it directly? That's open for anybody. Yeah.
A lie would be if you are intentionally committing a falsification.
Okay, so
here's the question now, Carl. You're asking me. You know, you're asking me.
So whether or not it is directly or indirectly, if you.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I know he's going to lie, I'm as culpable as the guy that says it. Correct?
A lie is the same thing as a falsification. It's a false truth.
Oh, I understand
that. I think that's lying by proxy.
But what I'm asking, that's what I'm asking. I'm asking is, if I send Brother John to answer this question, knowing that he's going to lie, am I as guilty as Brother John of telling a lie?
Maybe not as guilty, but yeah, guilty nonetheless.
But still guilty nonetheless. Okay. So, so then how do we deal with God sending a lying spirit? Because it seems to me then that that's exactly what's happening. God is sending another entity on his behalf that he knows is going to lie.
Well, obviously,
I thought you didn't believe in God.
Oh, wait a minute. So doesn't that by extension mean that God has lied?
No, it does not. It just means that you don't understand.
No, it does not.
God cannot lie.
Well, wait a minute. But you just said if I do that, then
yeah, that's
I am
if
as
you
guilty.
do that.
Okay, but wait a minute. Well, wait a minute. A lie is a lie no matter who tells it. It doesn't.
Okay.
Whether God if God exists. Let me finish.
Where does it say that?
Well, wait a minute. Well, that's
wait,
sense.
one at a time.
Hang on.
Hold on. Hold on. Stop. Pause. Hold on. Okay. We were referring to script. We had a scripture come up earlier. I think it was in 1 Kings. We're talking about how God sent out a deceiving spirit. In some texts, it's a lying spirit. So that's what
1 Kings
Paul is referring to.
Right.
What? 1 Kings what?
I'm not sure what the reference is. Somebody will have to Google that.
I will have to scroll back.
But my point here, or my question was, if I get the sentence out, was that if I send Brother John to tell somebody a lie,
Brother John, I love you. I'm out of here.
I am guilty as a lie, just like Brother John is. So my question then, why does that also apply to God? If God sends a lying spirit, or God is intentionally sending an entity.
Because you're not God.
Well, no, but whether or not I'm God doesn't change whether something is true or false.
Okay.
We defined a lie.
Hold on. Let's start with God does not lie. Will you give us that, Carlton?
No, that's the question. I'm not going to give you the.
Okay,
question as an assertion.
So then, God does lie. In your version of reading the Bible.
What I am asking you.
I know what you're asking me.
No, I don't think so.
I need to know what you believe.
Well, no, it doesn't. The question here is we've defined what a lie is. That's why I asked that.
No, we haven't. We've defined what you did.
No, I asked you what a lie was. I said, give me a definition of a lie. Nobody disagreed. You gave a definition, or okay. I'm sorry, or it was Ryan. I might have been who gave the definition.
I'm out of this conversation. Go ahead, guys.
Of course, that's the easy way out. I asked somebody what it meant to lie. They said it was to deceive somebody, to cause someone to be deceived. I don't think anybody would disagree with that as a definition for lying. Okay. Then I asked, given that's the definition, if I were to send somebody on my behalf to deceive someone else, am I also guilty of a lie? And the answer there was yes. Maybe not to the same extent, but the answer was yes, I would still be guilty of a lie. So now that we know what it means to lie, and we know that I can be guilty by extension if I send somebody to deceive someone else, then God sends somebody or an entity to deceive somebody else. How is that not the same thing? God lying by extension.
Yeah, and I see the logic in that, Colin, and especially if we're going to refer to the scripture, it specifically says sending a lying spirit, as opposed to what you're saying that it'd be a matter of intent. If your intent was to deceive someone else, and you knew that the example here that you tell me I'm going to do that, so you know if we that intention, it'd all be dependent on your attention.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah.
But
So,
the intention seems obvious when we kind of look at the scripture, unless we have to look at it further more in context.
yes, I mean, to start the conversation with God doesn't lie isn't examining the question. That's simply asserting an answer ahead of time. Well, that's easy to do, right? But that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to say, is there any evidence that God, in fact, deceives people? And it seems fairly plain that he, in fact, does. So I think you have a problem then with the assertion. I mean, the only answer I see, I'll play devil's advocate for a second for my own question. The only answer I see there is either to say that that piece of scripture is not accurate in terms of what it says about God. You could say that, then of course, then we don't have the lie anymore. But then that brings up an even worse problem, you know, which then is, well, how do we pick and choose which ones are true and accurate and which ones aren't? But if you're going to say that it's all accurate, that seems pretty straightforward to me.
By the way, the scripture is 1 Kings 22:22. That
Thank you.
Remember?
Thank you, John. Is Ryan still here, by the way? Or I thought he was here a second ago.
He dropped.
He dropped out. Plus, he was having some lag issues. So.
Yeah, I was going to say I couldn't work out if he was interrupting or just having lag issues or both.
Okay, all right.
So, if you're watching Ryan, I hope you. I'm sure you were just being lagged.
Oh, sorry about that. Yep.
At this time, I want to welcome Benna, and Jordan. Benna. Jordan, good to see you, Jordan.
Hey, Jordan, long time no see.
If either one of you have something to add or ask, or go ahead, the floor is yours, because everyone here pretty much had a...
We've talked a lot.
Well,
yeah.
I am curious. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but I know Roy's still here. Given that verse and the definitions that we had, how do you then explain that verse as it not being lying? I guess I'm not kidding. I just think it would be fun to actually resolve one of these nights, to actually say, here's the question, here's a verse, now let's actually, instead of scurrying around to talk about a different verse, let's actually resolve this particular one. And then we can move on, but I'm curious, it's a good question. So where's the answer? Yeah, para measurar?
Let's go with this. What would you accept as an answer?
Hang on one second, my wife's here. Give me 1 second.
What specific verse are we talking about?
It really doesn't matter.
Hang on. Carlton's gone away. Your call is important to us.
So, for those of you who don't know, Carlton and I do have a history.
I'm back now.
And,
Sorry, go ahead.
I do my best. So, yeah, if it sounds like I treat Carlton different than most people, it's because I do. And if you find that Carl treats me the same as he treats everybody, then that's also the way that it is.
Roy, I missed your question.
So,
I had my headset off. I'm sorry.
He didn't ask a question.
Well, that's okay. You already know what's going on. I was just cluing in the rest of the peeps.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there an answer that I missed or no?
No.
Okay.
I'm hoping Roy will present one.
Yeah, the answer is, what does it matter? Whatever you think. If God says he cannot lie, then he does not lie. And if you say he lies, then, yeah, that's your interpretation, which is, of course, wrong. Now, if you want to take the
you realize
passage...
that you realize that
if you want
I hope you realize that you've contradicted yourself in that case.
Yeah.
We're not using proper rational exegesis on this.
Let's start. Well, then I'll leave my verse for a second, because that uncertainly seems to indicate that God lies. Where's the verse that says God said he doesn't lie?
There's Google.
There is a verse that says, and I know some the Jews use this as well as some Noahides. There's a verse that I think it's in Numbers that says, God is not a man that he shall lie, or that he should lie.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. So we have a verse where somebody, I don't know if that's out of the mouth of God or out of somebody else's mouth, but that's fine. So we have a verse that asserts that God doesn't lie, but then we also have a verse where it clearly says that God sent somebody else to lie to somebody. Now, I would argue there that while that's not a direct lie on God's part, his intent there obviously is to deceive, or he wouldn't have sent a lying spirit. And we talked about that earlier, and we said that if somebody did that, they would be as guilty of lying as the person that they sent. So it would seem we have a real conflict there.
Yeah, at least with the biblical God.
Well, yeah, it's the one we're talking about, right?
Yeah. I'm just want to clarifying that again.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think any of Daenerys' dragons lie. I've never heard them tell a lie, but the one we're talking about here, we do seem to have that issue.
Jordan, I know you're well versed. Anything? Add, ask. Can you talk, buddy, or kids are sleeping?
Oh, okay. It might be hard to
He's in
talk.
the side chat, so he's with us, but I don't know if he's.
That's fine.
Oh, he said he'd be right back. Okay.
I was going to say, this may be what Phony Beetle Maniacs, if ever you've come across him, might call Mummageddon.
Yeah, for those in the audience, in 1 Kings 22:22, I'm going to start from verse 20, and it says, and the Lord said, who will persuade Ahab to go up, that he may fall at Ramoth Gilead? So one spoke in this manner, and another spoke in that manner. Then a spirit came forward and stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him. The Lord said to him, in what way? So he said, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And the Lord said, you shall persuade him and also prevail. Go out and do so. Pretty strong.
Can I get you to read a couple more verses for me? If you can thumb your way over to 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 11.
Hold on.
Hey, John, could you put the link in the side chat, please, for this room? I have a friend who wants to join us, if it's okay.
Oh, awesome.
Hey,
sure.
Did Seth take the last seat? 2, 4, 6.
You don't have a link in your browser?
No, I don't. There's no link in my browser. I don't know why.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, just send them the browser URL. I mean, it's not a separate link. Just send them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't see it.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Seth took the seat of my friend. It's the lady friend. Seth. Okay, well, I'll just tell her.
Was she better looking than Seth?
Well, anybody's better looking than Seth. I mean, even I'm better looking.
I didn't mean to insult your lady friend. I was just saying.
Also, the link to the room, it should be in the event page. I posted there a couple times as well.
You got
if anyone goes to the Google Plus page, go to events or Hangouts, and it should be listed there.
You got that Thessalonians one, John?
Yeah, you wanted 2 Thessalonians. What was it? 2:11.
Yeah, 2:11 exactly.
And for this reason, God will send them strong delusion that they should believe the lie.
Okay, and then last one, Jeremiah 27.
20
verse 7.
Jeremiah was a
bullfrog. Was a good friend of mine.
Don't kill some time for me while I go searching. Okay, here we go. It's always easy to remember Jeremiah. It comes right after Isaiah, which is IJ, so that's pretty cool. What was the chapter again?
Chapter 20, verse 7.
Chapter 20, verse 7, Jeremiah says, "O Lord, you induced me, and I was persuaded."
Okay, that's interesting. That's a different. What are you
This
reading?
is the New King James Version.
That's fine. Okay, I'll let that go then. In the one I'm looking at here, it actually says, "Oh Lord, thou hast deceived me, and I was deceived." But that's fine. Thessalonians is fine. Kings is fine. The Kings one is actually repeated in Chronicles and 2 Chronicles too. Same thing, same statement. So anyway, it just seems, right, that even though there are verses that says that say God won't lie, in fact, it seems to also say that on several occasions he did, and he does. So that's problematic, because one of them, it would seem, can't be correct. I don't personally care which one's not correct, but it would seem like one of them is not correct.
Yeah, they can't both be.
You can't have your cake and eat it too, yeah.
Yeah, they can't both be them.
Reminds me of another song. You can have your cake and eat it too.
Is that a song?
Hey, Roy.
You have to choose between the two. Yeah. Go ahead, Seth. Oh, welcome, Seth.
No, I was just I didn't know how long I was going to be in here because I wanted to get something to eat. If Roy wanted to get his friend in here, tell them to be ready because I'm going to drop out here and get something to eat.
Fine.
Okie dokie.
You got that, Roy?
He might be AFK for a second.
Did you have a point while you were here?
No.
No.
How you been, Seth?
I've been good, thanks, Carlton.
Awesome. Good. Did you have a nice New Year?
Yeah, it was actually pretty nice.
Yeah, sweet. I got my son still here reluctantly. He's been hijacked. The airlines canceled his flight, so he couldn't go home today.
What game is he playing?
Oh, I don't know. What are you playing, Greg? Somebody's asking. Yeah. He was playing WoW for a little bit.
All right. Okay. I didn't know what it was, but it was driving me nuts watching it and not knowing what the fuck it was.
Hey, Colin, did you wind up going bowling? What was it, yesterday?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, good.
It was fun. We did a little moonlight bowling. I haven't been bowling in like 10 years, so it took a little while to kind of get my mojo back.
I have not been bowling in. I haven't been bowling since I can't remember when.
Wow. Yeah, it was kind of fun.
Roy's friend is just quickly, if Roy's friend's listening, Seth dropped out, so there is a spot.
Oh.
Get in here quick.
I didn't see him go. That's quick.
Run!
Run. Quick. I've been adding people to my block list pretty frequently, so if they can't get in, it might be me. Okay, what is this? Does this mean that God, who sent a deceiving spirit, is a deceiver himself? No. God sending a deceiving spirit does not mean that he is a deceiver. He was merely sending a demonic person, allowing it to perform. Well, I don't know if I can accept that, Benna, only because, again, the intent here is what's important. So the intent here is that whatever comes from God is truthful. If he sends somebody else that he knows is going to lie, then he, by extension,
I ran.
that was the same.
I made it.
Hey,
Yay!
welcome.
Hey, welcome, Michelle. Welcome.
Yeah, Bennett. So that was kind of the same thing that we had talked about, right? That if you're going to say that I am a liar by extension, if I send somebody to tell a lie on my behalf, then the same would have to apply if God sends someone who he knows is going to lie to answer a question or to communicate something, because ultimately it means he is willing for the person getting the answer to be deceived. That's what lying is about. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I agree. I was just trying to find something from the other side too.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bennett. I was
going to say I didn't see that.
It's not my position, but yeah,
that's very likely.
Okay. Yeah.
I wonder what the legal terminology is like. If someone say orders a killing, they're not actually doing the killing, but
command responsibility.
Like an accomplice, or I'm sorry.
It's called command responsibility.
Well, if it's murder, it's conspiracy to murder, is it not?
Yes.
So conspiracy to fraud here, or the defraud?
I could be wrong. I've never been on the wrong side of the law in that way. So.
Yeah, right. Just to look at this sort of from a common sense perspective, and not necessarily what it says, but the whole purpose, I would assume, behind Bible telling you that God doesn't lie is to engender trust in the people that are coming to him for answers. That's why the only reason you would care. And so if he then sends somebody else on his behalf, or sends someone else and ultimately takes an action that he knows is going to cause you to be deceived, then you've lost that trust. It has no basis anymore. If I trusted Brother John, and I knew Brother John, and I trusted that he would never lie to me, or I had reason to believe he would never lie to me, then I also have to trust whatever representative he sends on his behalf, as though they're speaking on his behalf. He's sending them. So yeah, if the third party lies, then as far as I'm concerned, Brother John did too. If he knew that was in fact what was going to happen, obviously. Anyway,
may not be as you may not be as guilty, but guilty nonetheless.
yeah, I would almost say you're more guilty, Brother John, only because while you didn't say it directly, the guy that's lying to me doesn't care if he knows I'm lying, whereas you're actually trying to circumvent this and hide behind a sort of a curtain of a third party to do your lying for you. I mean, to me, that's almost just as bad, if not worse.
Hey, I want to just, I was away from the keyboard, didn't see Michelle come in, and she's my friend who I was talking about earlier. So welcome, Michelle. I just want to say hi and welcome. And if you haven't
thanks
had a
for
chance,
the welcome, though.
Yeah, hi, Michelle. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good.
If you haven't had a chance to answer
Hi,
this
Michelle. Welcome to God Talk.
yeah. So what is your take? Does God lie? Yes or no? Does he lie? And does he lie to you?
I think if he didn't lie, if he does lie, its intentions are good in the end.
So the ends justify the means?
Not necessarily. I mean, if someone was to be sent to lie, the lying would be to persuade someone to find their truths and not just to lie for the sake of being a bad person or doing bad things.
Yeah, I mean that's what
the end
justify the means means, right? That's what we're saying. We're saying that the fact that you're trying to get him to be good justifies the fact that you lied to him to do it.
Yeah.
Which to me,
I suppose that's a different way to put it, but I definitely understand where you're coming from.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So,
Meaning lying is not always wrong.
Well, but that would be the next logical question, wouldn't it, John?
Yes.
Could be wrong if your reasons towards lying is for the intent of bad or to cause bad upon somebody else.
Okay, so are you saying, Michelle? And I'm not trying to paint you into a corner. I'm just.
Oh, no worries. That's okay.
What it sounds like what I'm hearing here, right? And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But what it sounds like I'm hearing then is that the actions themselves are neither right nor wrong. It depends on the intent.
As well as individual choice, but the intent would definitely mean your own free will to make your own decisions. I mean, if you're going to decide to lie to someone, your own decision for doing that lie is of your own. It's not somebody else to tell you, oh, you've lied because you did this or that. They have no reason to believe your standpoint. You can only come from your place and your reason for creating a lie or deciding to tell the truth when faced with a decision or
okay. So what we're basically saying then is lying is not always a sin. That sometimes it's okay if your intent is good.
I suppose yes, if everybody involved would agree in the end, but lying could be a sin if you were going to do it for the wrong reasons.
Sure.
I mean,
so I mean,
that's self-explanatory.
A real simple, the simple example that everybody uses. My wife comes in the room and says, "Hey, honey, do I look good in this new dress?" And I think she doesn't. It makes her look fat. But I lie and say, "Yeah, I think it makes you look. It looks great, honey," because I don't want to hurt her feelings.
Well, as long as the energy behind the words are correct, then I don't think there's any reason why you should tell her, "Oh yeah, you look fat," in that, because that's just going to make her feel worse and bring her down.
I would totally agree with you, Michelle. I suspect that Roy would disagree, though. Am I right, Roy?
Can't exactly speak for him, neither can I. So.
No, I'm asking him. That was a question. I was asking him. Yep. Maybe he stepped away again.
Uncharacteristically quiet.
I think it does go back to kind of that question that I had posed to Roy earlier of lying to protect someone that you love, and that can God do that? Could God or even in my case, being a Wiccan, so I'm a deist pantheist, but like, do I believe that my goddess and my God have the capability to lie? Yes, I do. Do I believe that maybe they make the decision to or to not? I agree with that as well. I also believe that there are, lesser gods, but I believe that those gods, might have a malintent, and their intent is to deceive and to lie, and go against that. So I think that you can still have it in that I'm going to kind of put forth this lie or this deception because I just want to protect you in the end.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think from a Christian perspective, which I'm not, by the way, but I think from a Christian perspective, though, the problem that sort of creates for them is now morality is no longer objective. Now morality is dependent on the intention of the person who does the thing, the action. So therefore, there literally is no crime, if you will, against morality that I can commit that couldn't also maybe in some circumstance be committed with good intent, or at the very least to do less harm than the other bad choice that you might have, in which case there would be nothing wrong with it. So it's sort of the I don't know. We could do a bunch of examples, but whether it's murder, or whether it's
example of a situation where you would have to lie to, I suppose, cover up or to hide something from somebody who you have feelings for or care about enough that you wouldn't want to hurt their feelings in the ending.
I mean, it's a simple one. Is some crazed maniac comes to my door with a gun and says, "Hi, I'm running around. I'm going door to door to killing all the children, killing children, because I believe they should die. Do you have any children at home?" And obviously, I've got 3 kids upstairs. Guess what I'm going to say? No. Right.
That's an extreme example, but an example that everybody can relate to. That
I think also. Oh, that you mentioned that it was someone you deeply care about. The thing that comes to mind for that would be, saying something that might make them feel better on their deathbed. The first thing I could come up with that sort of situation. Because effectively, you would be avoiding at least temporal. What should I say? A blowback from that lie.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Here's a simple lie that I've done from time to time. I'll fess up here, okay? If I go to hell for this, so be it. My wife will ask me. She'll say, she'll go to work or something, and before she goes to work, she'll say, "Honey, sometime when you get a chance today, put the clothes in the laundry." Oh, okay, fine. And then, 3 in the afternoon, she's coming home from work. She calls me. She says, "Honey, did you remember to put the clothes in the laundry?" And I go, "Of course I did." I didn't, but I say yes I did because as soon as I hang up the phone, I'm going to go run and throw them in the laundry.
Why not say, well, actually, I didn't put the clothes in the laundry, but I will.
It depends.
Get around to doing that.
It depends, but yeah, I just don't want my wife to get upset. So since she wouldn't know one way or the other if I was lying, it's easier to lie to her and keep her happy than it is to tell her the truth.
But sometimes people need to be disappointed before they can know what true happiness.
I agree. But I think my point here, Michelle, is simply that we have a real problem. I think it creates biblically a very real problem because if God can and does lie for whatever reason, and it seems from Scripture that we can demonstrate that He does, then there's a trust problem. There simply is. So if He's lying, and even if He's lying with good intent, well, we don't know when that is. In other words, we don't know if He communicates something. Well, is that true, or is this a lie because He thinks it's in my best interest? Well, I would really kind of like to know, because then everything is sort of on that chopping block, and I really have no basis on which to say one is a lie and one is a lie for my benefit and one is the truth. I don't know. And so everything is up for grabs at that point, and you lose
in my personal opinion, it just sounds to me, no offense or anything, and I hope that this means no harm, that it just sounds like you have, not to intrude or anything, but personal issues with your loved one there.
No, I don't have any personal issues with my loved one.
Okay,
I mean,
then, well, that's...
Go ahead, sorry.
Lying to someone that you claim to love is not a just thing to do, but people still do it anyway, and sometimes they have reasons to do such. But
that doesn't necessarily beget personal flaws or things that you insinuate.
And again, there's I'm not necessarily looking for a specific example. All I'm saying is I think almost everybody in the course of their life tells what I'll call white lies simply because they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, let's say, and there's really no reason to be honest about a question. I know what they want to hear. They want to hear that the dress looks nice. So there's no what what is served by saying it makes you look fat, honey?
Yeah. Or to give it a more concrete example, when I first started on antidepressants. Now, I remember asking my parents, or one of my parents, will this make me feel better? And they said yes. Now I know that they had actually read the research and said this will actually initially make you feel worse, but will in the long term make you feel better. Now, were they wrong to lie?
Well, you can't exactly speak for your own feelings. If you're going to ask them, is this going to make me feel better, you're obviously coming from a place where you're not feeling very good. So you're going to ask that question either way. And their answer doesn't depend on how you're feeling. It depends on their best interest for their child, who they brought into the world. They might not see eye to eye with you, but they're going to do the best they can to lead you in the right direction. If they lied to you, they may not have that intent originally, as you ask the question.
But I think the point is here that we can find circumstances where I don't think anybody would disagree that lying is the better course of action.
Yeah, my point is that in those circumstances, I think it would be I would indeed argue that it was in the best interest of everyone for my parents to lie to me and say, yes, this will make you feel better, in order to get me to take those drugs that would eventually lead to that result.
Well, I mean, think of a simple example too, right? Let's say I got it. Let's say my son is, I don't know. Let's make him try and pick a reasonable age here. Let's make him 13 years old, or 10 years old, 12 years old, and I say, you know, I'm going to run across the street to the convenience store to get some milk. Be back in 5 minutes. And I go across the street to get the milk, and while I'm there, some stranger comes to the door and knocks on the door and says, are your parents at home? And he says, quite smartly, I think, yes, but he's in the bathroom. He lies. But the lie is a good lie. It's a reasonable thing for him to say, because right now he is unprotected. And that lie may at least, now maybe the guy at the door is no threat, but he doesn't know that. That lie at least may buy him some time or offer him some protection. I don't think anybody could look at that person and say, you know, you should have told the truth and told this stranger that you're actually home alone and defenseless. I think it's right up there with, you know, let's say a woman, or it could be a guy, it doesn't have to be a woman, but let's say you have a woman that's walking home alone and gets accosted, or you know, some guy wants to rob her or maybe rape her, I don't know. I don't think it's unreasonable for her to reach into her purse and say, I've got a gun, even if she doesn't. I think that's a perfectly good time to lie, because it may end up saving her life. It may not.
It really entirely depends on the situation. I mean, if somebody were, the first example you used, for example, as an example in turn, is somebody goes to your door and you answer the door and you decide to lie just for your own protection within the family. How do you know that person that's at your door has an ill intent?
You don't.
Then you don't need to lie unless if you understand the situation entirely. Somebody, if you're having fear towards somebody else, that might not be a fear towards who they are or what they're going to do or their intent behind being at your door or walking behind that woman who's, you know, so and so walking home or going to get raped, as you have as an example. Those things happen in life. Those are situations that depend on the people. So as I mentioned, the fear that you have towards somebody that has a possible ill intent may actually be a reflection of your self-doubt towards that person and not who they are as an individual and their intent behind being there.
Right.
In that
but I think
example.
I think that misses the point. I think the point I'm trying to make, and maybe I didn't make it well, the point I'm trying to make is simply this, that what we're looking at here, and I think the original topic was, does God lie? And then from that we said, well, you know, clearly the Bible says he doesn't lie, but then clearly it also says that he does, and that seems to be problematic. Now, I think it was more problematic for Roy, and I think you looked at it and said, well, it's not necessarily problematic. It depends on the situation, which I think we are all in agreement with. That, you know, certainly on a human level, there are times when the right thing to do is to lie. Given that is the case, that we would agree that there are situations where that is the right thing to do, then that the point I was trying to make is that now is problematic for an objective morality, where somebody says that lying or anything is always right or always wrong, regardless of the circumstance, which typically is the biblical position, that there is this objective morality which does not depend on circumstance. It is always right or it is always wrong. And that's what I'm trying to get to, is saying that is problematic, because in fact that is not really how any of us behave. We don't behave as though there's any kind of objective morality that is always one thing or always the other. Most of us understand that there are shades of gray, and it depends on the situations that we're in, and most of us we're okay with that. So sorry, that was a little long speech, but I wanted to make sure that I was that you understood kind of what I was.
No, I definitely get your point there, for sure.
Okay.
So I suppose I don't exactly have a particular response to that, but you definitely make a good argument when it comes to depending on a situation in regards to if there was another I suppose situation is the wrong word. I'm actually no, I could disagree with your statement.
Okay. How so?
How so? In the sense that I couldn't disagree with it.
You couldn't. I'm sorry. I thought you said you could.
No, that's not. No,
I misunderstood. Okay.
I can disagree with it. So
there he is.
It's always wrong to lie.
He's a liar.
It's always wrong to lie, and even if you think it's a good enough reason, that's good. That's good for you, and God will judge your heart, and that's perfectly fine because He knows your heart better than any human being does. And if He agrees with you, then there'll be no negative consequences. And if He doesn't agree with you, then there'll be negative consequences.
Well,
so
but if it's
really
always, but then the problem that you haven't answered, Roy, and welcome back, by the way. But then the question that you haven't answered then is, if it's always wrong, what do we do with the verses that indicate that God is deceiving people actively?
Yeah. So God does not lie. You have to start there. If you don't start with God does not lie, then you won't know and understand anything. So God also says, lean not to your own. Let me answer.
Okay, God.
God says, lean not to your own understanding. My ways are not your ways. My ways are so much higher than your ways. So when He gives us a direct command,
listen,
always wrong or it's always right, then even if you judge it to be not so, doesn't matter because you don't know what He has got beyond what you're able to reason and understand. So trust God with all your heart, leave not to your own understanding, and move to the next.
The problem, though, I think, Roy.
There is no problem. The only problem is that you don't believe God. So you're in disbelief of what God just said is true.
Wait a minute.
And you're the judge of God, and that's the problem.
I let you do that. Let me explain why I think that that's a problem. The reason I think that is a problem is that both verses carry equal weight. One is not more right than the other. In other words, both verses are in the Bible. The one that says He doesn't lie is there, but so is the one that says He does. And you're preferentially saying, well, the one that says He doesn't lie.
No, you're wrong.
Let me
him finish.
It doesn't matter. He's already wrong. So let me say he's wrong.
In your opinion, but I mean,
how am I wrong?
Roy, you have to let him finish. I'm sorry, Roy. Please.
It's okay. It's okay. How am I wrong, Roy?
Because God does not lie, and you just said He did.
Yes, but He also says that He does. But wait a minute. He says both, Roy. That's my problem. In the Bible, both.
No, that is your problem because it can't be both. God cannot lie and lie.
Well, if they can't, yes, I agree with you. They cannot be both.
It's not His attribute.
But on what basis do you decide that one of them is right and the other one? How do you explain it? Why isn't the one?
I just explained it to you.
One would not be without the other. If you can't have a lie, then you can't have truth either, because people are lying all the time. People are telling the truth.
But why
can't to tell a lie, you have to know the truth, but to tell the truth, you don't have to have a lie.
Well, the thing is,
or have anything to lie about.
We're asserting that the statement that He never lies is true, and then we're saying that because of that, then the other one that appears to say that He does lie must have some other hidden meaning that we're not aware of. My question is, why do you automatically take that order of preference? Why isn't, for example...
Because it's the right thing to do.
Let me finish. Why isn't it equally valid to flip that and to say, aha, the Bible says several places that God in fact does lie, so when He says He doesn't lie, maybe that's the one that we don't understand correctly.
No, that's not right.
Why?
Well, no, people don't understand the opposite of what something means.
Okay, go ahead, Michelle.
But so are you, Roy.
I mean, if somebody's going to say He doesn't lie, and then somebody is, on the other hand, is going to say He does lie, but how can you explain that He doesn't, He tells the truth, but how can you explain that He lies? It's like the opposite of the answer is the question.
But yes.
So you can't make up your own excuse for what was true or what was not.
Right. Well, yeah, I think you just agreed with me. Maybe I didn't hear that right.
No, I definitely did agree with you because some of your points are valid, but I'm still trying to make a buildable argument here.
Yeah. So in other words, if God says I am never A, and then later on he says I am A, okay, that we have two statements that are in conflict. The problem is that as soon as you say, well, the first statement is true and the second one is not understood, you've made an assumption. You've leaned on your own understanding there, Roy. You've assumed that the first one you have a correct understanding of, and the second one you have a or lack of understanding of. But it's equally possible that you actually understand the second one correctly, and it's the first one that you don't have an understanding of. There's no basis on which to say one has to necessarily be preferentially true as opposed to the other.
Carl, all you have to do is just mute out here, go to the beginning of this recording, and just within the first 1 minute, you will understand why God cannot lie. I go through
but
that.
that's still something you've already said. That's something that already exists. As you've put it into your own words and said it online, and somebody else re-listening to it, if they've already listened to it, they're going to hear it a different way the second time because they're expecting a different result. If you, like your example would be the first point A, well, actually, I don't believe he's, oh no, you're still in the room, never mind. Yeah, he's, if point A is the assumption, you can't actually base an assumption off of a lie. You have to know the truth to base an assumption on anything, because then it's no longer an assumption, it's just a prejudged idea of what's real and what's not.
Right, but what I'm saying is, all I'm saying is that you have, let's take God out of the picture just for a second. If I have a book that talks about Brother John, I've never met Brother John in person, and I rarely see him online, so let's pretend I have never seen him online. But I have a letter about Brother John, and in there it says Brother John has blonde hair, and then later on in that same letter it says Brother John has brown hair. I have no way of knowing which of those two statements is the right one and which one is the incorrect one. Because I have no other information to go by. That's sort of my problem with the Bible. In one part it says he never lies. In the other part it clearly says he does lie. I have no basis.
That's your mistake. It doesn't say that.
Whatever you're reading, if somebody says, okay,
it doesn't say he lies.
Sorry.
You can't have
brown hair, black hair, blonde hair, whatever hair. If you read it somewhere, and you read it like somebody typed it, and then you have no basis other than what you've already read based on it, then that's going to be the assumption.
What's going to be the assumption, Michelle? Sorry.
That whoever, Brother John, didn't actually have this color hair or that color hair, brown or black or blonde or whichever example you use.
Right, I wouldn't know what color his hair was.
Exactly, but until
At
somebody
this point in
tells
time,
you,
I'm lucky to have any hair.
Shut up, John. See how wrong you can be?
It's transparent. You can see through it. It ain't there.
But that's my only problem is when it says that God sends a lying spirit, right? It says it in Chronicles, it says it in Kings, it says it in Thessalonians, it says it in Jeremiah. When we have these verses that say God is intentionally deceiving somebody or causing them to be deceived, okay? Well, if you can't have that and still say that you don't lie. That's what deceiving. Has
God ever deceived you, Carl? Yes or no?
I don't think he exists, so no.
So then why are you arguing this point? It doesn't make any sense. If you have a problem with this,
it makes sense.
Then I would simply say to you, just trust God with all your heart, lean not onto your own understanding.
That's what you're preaching, Roy. I don't need to be preaching. You don't need to preach.
Carl, we're not arguing the existence of God.
I'm not arguing God's existence. I am for the purposes of this discussion, looking at Scripture and saying, does Scripture say God lies? I am granting he exists for the sake of the discussion.
Exactly.
Okay? So whether I believe he exists or not is irrelevant to the discussion. What I am saying is that the Bible says
it's very relevant to the discussion.
It's not,
you don't understand what you don't understand, Carl.
Right. That's a tautology and it's a stupid one. So let's move on.
It's a contradiction if you're going to say that this is this. It's the same idea. So.
I'm just saying that the Bible, if you're saying that God's responsible for what's in the Bible, if you're saying the Bible is an accurate representation of God's communicative man, then there's a problem because the Bible says he doesn't lie, and yet in that same Bible, it gives us examples of him doing exactly that. So that's problematic. I don't care who you are. I don't care what topic we're talking about.
No, there's definitely problems if people still read it. They're all going to read it differently depending on how they see it or decide to choose what that idea would be.
Right,
If
but I've
God
never.
lies, then he lies in your mind. I can't change that.
No, it's not in my mind.
I could.
The problem there,
There's
Michelle,
a
is that.
logical problem there, Carlton, though.
Right, those,
Who's talking? Yuri? Okay, was it Yuri?
That
the only
analogy with John Sarah doesn't work.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
One at a time. I can't. Yuri?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, that analogy with John's hair doesn't work.
Well,
because
okay,
this,
good.
There's a problem with the logic. If somebody says they don't lie in one sentence and in another sentence they do say that they do lie or whatever, then you have to assume that they do lie because that's the only way to make both statements true.
Yes, I agree with you, Yuri. I'm sorry. So if I came across differently, I apologize. No, that's the only way they would both be true. But the other option, right? But the other option besides making those statements both true is simply to say one of those statements is inaccurate, but I don't know which one.
Right.
Well, you would have to start with some
possibility that they're both true.
Or you could start with the possibility that one of them is true and one of them is false. Investigate what you believe is true. If you find a meaning that isn't true, then go back and try the other point and then learn about that. Try to figure a point from that argument to create your consistent or your.
I would agree with you, Michelle. I would agree with you. But when you said something a second ago, though, you said. Hold on, I'm having a senior moment. I'm losing it. What was that you said? Point there. I think the issue becomes that. Oh, I know what it was. You said, well, it may appear to say that because this is how I'm, eisegesis. I'm reading into this what I want to be there. But that, in fact, doesn't seem to be the case. And the reason I say it doesn't seem to be the case is I've never had any Christian, I've pointed those verses out to me, who have been able to give me any alternative understanding of what that verse seems to indicate. Everybody seems to be fairly comfortable with reading it because it's a fairly straightforward, simple thing it's saying, and saying, yeah, it says it clearly says God sent a lying spirit. It clearly says he sent that lying spirit to deceive them with the intent to deceive. And so, I mean, there's not a lot of interpretation there. There's not a lot of wiggle room. It's fairly straightforward statement. Both of them are, and they're in conflict.
Right. And if I sent my
You
neighbor,
sound concerned.
if I sent my neighbor to come to you to tell a lie, it would be me just using a tool of my neighbor, but the lie is still mine.
Yes, I would agree. Unless somebody disagrees, I would, yeah.
Or at least, yeah, that's my opinion. That's how I see it. That's why I say it was almost a lie by proxy, is what I was calling it earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you
I would
can
agree
look
with
at
all
that.
you guys. I think with lying, though, these two, does he lie, does he not lie, they're not entirely independent variables. They're related. When you use analogies, you're using analogies that are completely independent of each other, and so they're not analogies that you can use in this case.
How are they? Help me understand that, Yuri. How are they not independent of each other? In the case of the two verses,
they don't rely on each other to be true or false.
Yeah,
but aren't we talking about a binary? Aren't we talking about something that is basically a binary state?
No.
Either. Really? I don't. How can you lie and yet say that you don't lie? That seems to be a very binary statement.
Well, if you're a liar,
creating in such a way that you're creating a soul that actually goes off to be truthful or a lie, that is the point of stopping the just anybody from not necessarily making a lie, but something that they can make so that they can change the world or fix the world or make it better. And that's probably a little bit too personal, but whatever.
There's a quick note. I'll be back in about 5 to 7 minutes. Xbox has the helm.
Okay.
I'll be here.
Okay, if you ask somebody who cannot lie, can you lie? He would say no. He or she would say no.
Right.
Whereas if you asked a person who can lie, then that person can answer in an arbitrary manner. Could say yes or could say no.
Sure.
So what we see in the Bible is an arbitrary answer.
Wait a minute. Where do we? Okay, now clarify that. I don't see an arbitrary. The only way it's arbitrary is if you presume that God's a liar.
Let me give you a possibility. Presume he isn't a liar, but say that he is a liar based on the own evidence that you have acquired to speak about such things.
Okay.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I just gave you
So the
something.
only evidence you have is in the Bible.
Wait a minute, I missed what Michelle said then.
Can you repeat that? Because I'm not sure I
Please.
got it the first time. I thought I had, and then I hadn't.
No, actually, I probably couldn't repeat it the exact same way, but I said.
Repeat it in a different way, the way that you would like.
Well, if you're going to say to that, I suppose to make that possibility would be, if he exists, assume he does, and then find out or make your own reason to have something that you could actually make to be a lie that would actually be just in the end. To have a truth out of something that makes no sense because nobody has the evidence to say that it's a lie.
Except for the fact that he directly says it is. That's the problem.
But
it's
how
not a
do
matter
you
of me.
claim that he directly says it when you are viewing it with your eyes and reading it on whichever line you're reading about the spirit?
Yeah, but I think that's now we're equivocating because the Christian position is that the Scripture is the Word of God. So I don't need to justify that I'm taking the Christian. I'm assuming the Christian position is right for the sake of the argument. So if it's right, I don't have that problem.
But we shouldn't be having a sake of an argument. We should be having some sort of discussion in the sense that somebody could potentially, well, actually, I'm not too sure, but regardless, yeah, I definitely agree with some of your points, but you're agreeing with me in the sense that it makes sense, but at the same time trying to say that it's for the sake of the argument.
Yes, in other words, yeah, we kind of all, I think, I came late to the discussion, but from what I understand from Brother John, we sort of basically all agreed sort of the topic was going to be, does God lie? That was the topic. And I think most of us, even those of us that are not Christians, for the sake of discussing that, will accept the Christian position that the Scripture represents God's Word, because we need something to look at that's reliable to make that determination as to whether he lies or not. So we accept that for the purpose of having the discussion. And then my problem, of course, is that if we accept that, then it's not. I don't even need to interpret it because there are very clear statements in there, some that indicate that God doesn't lie, and some that indicate that he does. So all I'm saying is, given the fact that we are accepting the Scripture as being an accurate representation of God and what he says, then we have a conflict, a very simple, plain, straightforward conflict.
Yeah, that's what I said. So there's your arbitrary answer right there. It's in the Scripture.
Yes.
Where is this arbitrary answer? Well, it's in the Scripture.
Right.
It says he lied here, and it says he doesn't lie here. So that's what you'd expect from when you go up to somebody who's capable of lying, and you ask them, do you lie? Well, you'd expect either or answer. He could be lying and say, no, I don't lie, or he could tell the truth and say, yes, I do lie.
So what you're saying, Yuri, if I understand the case you're making here, is you're saying that given the things that we kind of asserted, that it would seem then, given the fact that there are both answers in there, then in fact God must be a liar, because that's the only way he could make both those statements and have those statements be in line with his character, which is that of a liar.
Yes, but not to say being a liar in a derogatory manner.
No, I'm not. That he lies.
Not the way that
I'm
would
not trying to
actually
be derogatory.
affect you as a person.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, if God can do anything, then he would be capable of lying.
So what you're saying is, in order to make those two statements not contradictory, we have to admit the fact that he can at sometimes say things that are not truthful.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And that's fine. And I'm happy with that conclusion. I think that's a wonderful conclusion, because at least for me as an atheist, that opens up an even bigger can of worms. But yeah, I mean, I think so too. That's sort of my point. When we talk about something like this in particular, we don't have to jump through all kinds of interpretations of the verses. They're very straightforward. There's no exegesis here that really needs to be done. The context doesn't change the meaning either way. And so it's sort of a very simple problem.
And the logic points to the truth, like right away. If if you ask somebody who cannot lie, can you lie? You're going to get one answer: no, I don't lie.
This goes back to my 3 aliens in different languages and the little truth matrix puzzle.
It's like something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this goes back to an old puzzle that I did a long time ago. But yeah. So now we know that God lies. That's good. Well, I guess we have two. I guess we have two conclusions there, Yuri. Really, either God lies, that would make the statements consistent with his character, or the only other option there would be to say that the Bible does not represent his words. In which case, then we really don't have any kind of repository that we can look at to determine his character.
No, definitely not. I mean, suppose you just very helpful in that statement in the sense that it's not his words; it would be somebody else interpreting what that means, which is, in itself, everybody is indeed doing that as they read a Bible or read any book that anybody has written.
Yes.
But I think there's a, and I want to be careful when you say that, because that always kind of raises the hair on my back a little bit, because when people throw that word interpretation in there, while I agree with you from a technical standpoint, certainly we all have to understand or interpret, in quotes, if you will, the words that we're reading. It seems to imply, and that may not have been your intent, but it always seems to imply when people use that there's some wiggle room, that what we're reading is not actually what he intended to communicate. And I think in this case, that's a pretty case to make, because the sentence structure is very simple. There's nothing out of the ordinary or unusual or anything that could lend itself to a different interpretation. And I think there's one more point I'll make on top of that.
And I'll make a point on top of that.
Okay, fine. And that is this. When people always say, well, it depends on your interpretation, let's say we're talking about something else, to me, that calls into question God's capability as a communicator. One of the things that makes a good communicator is that you are able to convey your message accurately to the recipients who are reading it or hearing it. And if an omnipotent being has problems communicating his message to people,
that's not a good thing for the people who are actually trying to disbelieve or believe in something.
Right.
No, it's not, and that's my point there. So if God's not communicating well, then we have other problems.
Yeah. And another problem is all you have to do is memorize a couple of these adages, I guess. Yeah. There's a few others, like God works mysterious ways, and we cannot begin to understand them, and so forth. Just memorize like 3 of those, and you can get out of any logical trap, basically.
Yeah.
So you're basically uncornerable.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
which means you're unreasonable.
Yeah, not to really push me into any of that or anything, right?
No, not at all, Michelle.
Yeah.
Nobody, I've seen it happen though.
Yeah, I mean, Roy and I've gone back and forth a million different times, and
yeah,
and
it's hilarious to watch.
It is sometimes. Sometimes it's a bit frustrating for me, but that's okay. I'm sure it's frustrating for Roy too.
Yeah, frustrating for him. Yeah, I was gonna add that.
The last time we got together, we were talking about the definition of faith, and that just ran us straight into a freaking brick wall after about an hour.
If you understand his position and where he's coming from, though, like we were talking earlier, I mean, it's fine. He actually wants to have a discussion about it. Maybe you can't change his mind when he doesn't expect you to, but he still has input to add. But
I agree. I agree, Xbox. I mean, well, you know my background, right? I mean, I was a Christian for 20-odd years. I clearly understand what his position is, and I'm more than happy to let him modify that, if his is, slightly different. I think the problem that we have typically is one of vocabulary, that we seem to be unable to agree on a definition, or we agree on a definition, and then as soon as we do, we seem to go off in 2 different directions with the same word.
Agreed.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said agreed. I was agreeing.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing with faith, and I'm happy to take either definition. I don't care what definition we work with, except that we need to agree on it, and then we need to stick to it.
Exactly.
And I think that becomes part of the problem.
Get rid of the weasel room stuff.
Well, I was in a room not till a couple days ago. It was off air.
Yeah.
It ended up being like 4 hours with 3 different theists that come in the room. One after the other. One would leave and another one would pop in, and all 3 of them, for some reason, they were on this trip about, we're going to use the Webster's Dictionary and blah blah, and like,
okay.
I'm like, well,
Xbox.
That's not an authority, but let's figure out what they are. They wanted me to just use that as an authority, period, without actually looking at the definitions.
Yeah.
Xbox. Was it a Sunday?
You could have, yeah, probably.
I was going to say, because quite often you'll get quite belligerent theists come in on a Sunday.
Well, we've had this discussion in terms of God's morality with and I'm going to forget the verse. I know I'm going to misquote it. I want to say 1 Chronicles 15:1, but I may be very wrong. So if you look it up and it looks like something weird, I just got it wrong. But it's basically the one where God talks to King Saul, and tells him to go slay. It might have been the Amorites, but I'm not sure. But he says, go slay the women, the children, the men, the women, the nursing women, the children that are nursing, the infants. Then he goes through, of course, the typical, cattle list. The cows, the oxen, the donkeys, the asses, whatever. Kill them all.
And their pets.
And their pet, yeah, exactly. Pets, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, when you look at that and you say, well, that's clearly, I don't care if God calls that moral behavior, that he's free to do that. But I'm certainly under no obligation to see that as moral behavior. And while
who said God was moral?
What's that?
Who said God was moral?
Yeah, I don't think
that we have that question. Well, that comes up a lot. Or just, maybe just is a better word.
No, that's with good and stuff too. We talked and it was the definition thing. It ended up being, it was with Epi.
Yeah.
But whenever he says someone is good, it's judging it by his standards. When he says God is good, he is not judging God by our standards. God just is good. That's his nature, kind of thing.
I got an answer to that one too, but.
I'm just saying there was another one.
But in the Chronicles one, yeah, the argument that always comes back is that, well, there probably are events, or there are things there that maybe God didn't tell you, that if you knew those things would justify what he did. And I'm like, well, but I have a real problem with that, because he didn't tell me. That chapter doesn't explain why that was done, right? There is no justification offered. And in the absence of that, the only rational conclusion to come to is that this is a maniacal person. This is somebody who has, this is like a woman that straps a bomb to her chest, a pregnant woman with a bomb to her chest that blows up everybody in the train station. There is no way that you can justify that if you're not going to offer something, nor should it be expected that someone would whitewash that and just say, well, but it says God is good. Well, no, I'm sorry. You can tell me my neighbor's good all you want, but as soon as he mows down everybody, all the kids at school, I'm sorry, the he's really good doesn't fly anymore, because now I've got some tangible things that he's done that contradict that. And I think it's the same thing.
Again, you can do it by proxy.
What's that, Michelle?
Oh, no, I suppose I was just mentioning ideas of what you were using as justifications, or the what you were saying about whether or not it's good or bad, or in your own definition.
Oh, okay.
I was just listening. No,
Well, I think it is, and to touch on, I think what Xbox said there is.
Yeah. Would you give your reply to that? Because that's exactly what I was saying too.
Yeah. I think what he was talking about too is people. I'm sorry, let me be specific. Christians typically, in their evangelism, will point out attributes of God, okay, that they find or they think should come across as appealing, right? He's loving, he's just, he's truthful, he's whatever the list of attributes happens to be that day. He's benevolent, right, so forth. And they use those words, I think, at least partially in the hope that that's going to that somebody's going to find that attractive, that somebody is going to say, wow, that's really, I didn't know that, that's good. It's going to attract the person to, for example, wanting to know about God. Yeah. And that's all well and good, except the problem becomes then when you get in discussions with this person, as soon as you say, well, he doesn't appear to be just. Oh, well, that's your idea of justice, and that's not his. Well, this doesn't appear to be loving. Oh, well, that's your version of love, not his. Well, as soon as you've done that for all the traits, then really your first appeal absolutely makes no sense, because you're using words that you're saying, I am going to misunderstand, and you're using those words to attract me. It's sort of like a spider, the spider and the fly, Yeah. You're saying he's loving, and you're going, oh wow, I want somebody that's loving, and then you're going, wow, but he doesn't. It's not loving like you mean loving. Well then, okay.
I'll bring you back to the example with your wife in the laundry. If you don't do the laundry, and you decide to lie to your wife because you think it'll make her happy, you're actually just creating that very much opposites attract argument or idea or creation in that wording that you decide to use, instead of saying the truth, which would be, you know, honey, dear, whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't do the laundry.
Yeah.
Or so I did not do the laundry, but I will do this instead.
Yeah.
That's a truth. That's not a lie. But you decide to lie.
Right. Well, I agree with you, and that was maybe a bad example, but yeah, that probably was not a good excuse for lying or a good reason to lie. It was just, it came up the top of my head, and it was probably not a good example. So I agree with you.
Terrible.
But I do think that, like you said, there is a problem in Christianity in terms of these properties, because if when you say God is just, you expect me to understand that and respond to that concept, then it has to be the concept of justice that I hold. It would make I have nobody else's frame of reference to use. It has to be what I mean. And if that's not what you mean by just, then we should not use that word, maybe, or we should at least kind of qualify it before we use it.
God is just according to God's just terms.
What's that?
God is just according to God's just.
Right. What does that exactly mean? Well, usually what that means is anything that God does by definition is just.
Yeah.
And the problem with that becomes, let's say that I accept that. So you're saying anything that God does by definition must be just. Okay, fine. Okay. Now you're going to say also that everything that God does by definition is loving. Okay. Yeah. Now you're going to say, and I'll add one more. You're going to say now everything that God does by definition is truthful. Okay. And I'm going to say, okay, I'll accept that. What we've now done, right, make a big Venn diagram. We got 3 circles, but they don't overlap. They're the same circle. Because literally the definition of what it means to be each one of those things is the same. If everything God does is loving, then it's also everything he does is just. Everything he does is true. There is nothing to distinguish true from just from loving. It's all the same set of actions.
It is, yeah, it is, because he is the standard of it from their point of view.
Right, but then the words lose their meaning. Then there is no, they have no meaning because they all mean the same thing.
Right. To us, yeah, and that's what yeah.
Yeah. If you were to create 3 different ideas of what a word would mean to you, and you put them in 3 different circles, if the word is still the same topic for those 3 ideas, you create those words to explain what those words mean to you in 3 different sections. It's still all the same. It's separate.
Right, but and I guess what I'm saying though is with a human though, when I have those 3 words, right, there may be some overlap. There may be some actions I perform that do fall into multiple categories, but there is a way to distinguish the categories. Everything that is loving is not by definition also just, and everything I do that's just is not necessarily truthful. They don't have the same definition, but when we define them by God's actions, then they literally do have the same definition. There's nothing.
It's not just because there's no definition for.
Yeah.
He flows into all of them because he is.
Hey, I'm back, John.
Yeah.
If you want to close up, go ahead and.
Excuse me, guys.
Yeah,
thank you. At this point, I like to use, I like when we do a topic, I like to keep the hangouts about 2 hours, because who really going to listen, for much longer? We already gone long. But at this point, before I make any kind of closing statement, I just want to give an opportunity for anybody, just take a minute if you have a closing statement. So I want to give anyone and everyone that opportunity.
Thank
you. All right,
you.
I'll go first. Or ladies first.
Well, I suppose it was nice talking and speaking with all of you guys this evening or day or whichever time zone. I'll probably be heading out, so anybody who's listening, I was glad for you to, be a part of this discussion tonight, and I hope you got something out of it. So, have a good night.
Thanks, Michelle. And just a reminder, we're just going to stop the live part, and we'll just still be off air. But go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, no, I just want to say that what got this HOA started today was the fact that I was just contemplating my navel lint. Oh, okay, maybe not so, but if God exists, then he cannot lie. It's really that simple. And that's my closing statement because I got a call. Thanks, John.
No problem, Roy. Thanks for being part of the hangout. It was a pleasure.
It's great. You put up with us, and we put up
Putting
with
things in black and white statements like that doesn't really help any situation. It's this way or that way, and that's it. There's no grays, no in between. Well, there's always going to be shades of gray.
Well, that's what his stance is, that it is black and white, and he only takes one.
I know.
Well, I just letting him have his closing statement, you know.
Well,
Anyone else? Carlton?
Sure. You know
Yeah.
what, John, I always enjoy your hangouts. You always do a real good job moderating, and you have good topics and good people. And Michelle, nice to meet you. It's the first time we've talked, and I had a really nice conversation with you. I appreciate that. As to Roy's assertion and Yuri's comment, yes, there are always shades of gray. You know, I mean, it's possible that I'm right. It's also possible that you're wrong. It could go either way. But anyway, sorry, couldn't resist. Anyway, thanks again, John.
Not a problem. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll say the same thing, but Cider can go. Go ahead, Cider.
No, go on, Xbox. I'll take a
I just wanted to say thanks again, and it was good seeing all y'all pop out again. And I thought, Roy, the conversation, I know he's not here, but I thought it was actually beneficial to have the conversation on our side, even though we weren't agreeing, and just trying to work through it. It was a good thought experiment.
Thanks, X. Oh, and one last thing, you want to promote that new channel coming up again?
Oh, yeah. On YouTube, it'll be Deeper Than Dogma. And it's Sokka and I, and we'll have a panel of a few good people that everybody knows, like John Dropout, Epi, people like that. And actually, we'll try to keep the panels about 5-6 people each week. Have about a 90-minute show, pick a topic, and stick to it for once. Just try to convert our 8-hour show down into a 90-minute thing and stick to the topic.
Awesome. Awesome.
It'll be Thursday.
So everybody check that out, Deeper Than Dogma. Cider, do you have any closing words?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I'm not sure the actual topic has been advanced that far, partly because, as someone was saying, Roy's position is very stark and very black and white, and so I'm not quite sure how far this debate was going to be advanced in itself, but I think it's a credit to the people here and the moderators that we've strung this out over 3 and a bit hours. And so thank you very much for letting me be a part of it, and see you around on the interwebs very soon. It must have been fun because it must have been fun because I've broken out a second bottle of 75 centilitres worth of 7.5% rough cider. So.
Well, thanks, Cider, for coming in the room, and it was a pleasure meeting you here, and it was a good experience. I know Jordan was mostly in text, but I'll give him a chance if he wants to say anything on mic.
Yeah, great.
Is he just gonna whisper?
I don't really have anything to add. Thanks, John.
Not a problem, Jordan. Well, again, I want to first thank Xbox for the previous video call, and then allowing to do this live and on Roy's suggestion, and I thought it went very well. For me, I guess part of it does come down to what we are going to define God and His attributes, and that's what we've been kind of discussing here. So I want to thank everybody in the room and everybody listening. If you want to come join the After Live party, the link's in the event page. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. And join these, and also add these fine people in the chat to your circles, and we'll continue the conversation another time. So thanks for joining us here on God Talk, and we'll see you next time.